everybody to the October 22nd Committee of the Whole agenda for tonight, starting at 4 o'clock. And yes, I am back. And thank you. It was a lovely little bit of time away.
Good.
So I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Kootenay, the Syilx, and the Sinix people, and is home to the Métis. It's bad enough that you have to listen to me in mono, let alone in stereo.
So not true.
Sorry. Oh, we'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Kootenay, the Syilx, and the Sinix people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strengths as a community. I've received no late items, and so if I could have an adoption of the agenda as circulated, moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Panera. All those in favor, opposed, and that carries. We have, unfortunately, we did not get the minutes of previous minutes attached, so we'll be moving on to item 6, resolution to close the meeting to the public. It is of the opinion of council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of council and staff and any approved audiences be excluded from this meeting, and that the special closed meeting of council continue under section 91D of the community charter to deal with matters relating to the following: the security of the property of the municipality. If there's take your jacket off, have a seat. If I could have a mover, moved by Councillor Weber, seconded by Councillor Tate. All those in favor, opposed, and that carries. Number 7.
You're gonna have to speed read now.
Yes, we're live. Okay.
Everything's fine.
Under
Everything's fine.
item
You can
number
do it.
7, the Q3 financial update. And so I'd like to turn that over to our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Jury.
Okay, just getting set up. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just getting set up a little bit. Sonia, is it okay if I get a slideshow going here?
Excuse me.
Your mouse googling around? But yeah, okay. Okay. Do you know how to get this thing on the screen?
Yeah, we're working.
Okay, awesome. No problem. All right. You do have some stuff in front of you. So just as far as a bit of a quick run through, this is a quarterly 3 update. Perfect. Thank you very much. Our quarterly 3 update. So we just had our Q2 update a couple of months ago. We're getting into budget session now. We've got, we did water and wastewater. We've got hydro coming on Friday. So there's a bit of overlap here. So I'll just kind of maybe not touch too heavily into those areas, since we're going to be getting, and we have had a bit of a more in-depth look at those pieces. So more of the focus is kind of on the operating side for this presentation. But we'll look at some of the capital projects as well and discuss where we're at with those. Okay. On the operating side, so this is a graph you're probably familiar with. We've showed this before, where we outline kind of in the dark blue color here where we're at Q3 of 2024, and then in the gray where we were at this same time last year, and then in the background there, the hollow box is the budget. So on each of these, I'll just kind of touch on 2 or 3 on each slide. If you have any questions though about any of them, just let me know. All right, that worked, cool. So taxes, of course, you know, we send these out in the early summer. They come back in July. You know, there's sometimes a little bit of a timing difference depending on when of those grants in lieu of taxes come in, but you know, we're always very close to budget, so that just reflects our 5.3% tax increase that we had for 2024, plus any of the new construction revenue that came in, which was about 2%. Next, we've got sale of services. So what's in sale of services? Because you got sale of services, you've got other revenues. Sale of services is sort of those fee type pieces. So you've got your garbage fees in there, parking meter revenue, revenue from the youth center, some of the police revenues that come in there. So we're doing quite well on, our parking revenues up. We're about 200,000 more than we were this time last year, but that's sort of reflected in a reflection of the coin increase that we did earlier in the year, the meter rate. But all of that will then go into our capital projects reserve, which was the intent to help us with, the street improvements and roads and sidewalks and all of those big projects that we have. So based on what we're seeing, we should be able to put into that reserve what we had budgeted for the year. So that's excellent news, and be able to continue as planned with those projects. Of course, the garbage fees were up. That was all part of the budget, so that's all included in that piece there. The other revenue, which is that next block over, is more of your, some of your licensing fees, sort of passive rental income type things like that, that's in that side of it. Some internal charges as well.
Councillor Payne has a question.
I'm just interested, I'm sure we'll hear more about this later as we go through the budget, but when the garbage fees are up, is that just an increase in the tag price, or are we getting more garbage as well?
It's that annual fee that goes out when we send the invoice out in February.
Okay, sorry.
So we had that.
Resource.
Yes, resource recovery, sorry, yes.
Thank you, not the actual sale tags.
Yeah.
That's what
the garbage tags themselves are in there as well. It's a smaller piece, but it's...
But it's a resource recovery bill as a result of the increase. That's
correct, yes.
The clarity I needed, thank you.
The next piece I thought I'd highlight is on the investment income side of things. We're a little bit less than we were the prior year. It's maybe a little bit difficult to tell there, but we are tracking on budget. We've seen rates come down. We did do that shift where we put a lot of our funding into fixed rates so that we wouldn't be impacted by declining rates. Most of this goes into our reserves as we, comment each time. But we did have some aspect of it. I think $375,000 was our budget for how much of that funds operations, and we've hit that already for 2024, so we should be fine till the end of the year. And like I say, the rest of that is going into all our reserves, our capital reserves, to help fund those. Conditional grants, this is one just to highlight because, you see the budget way up there and, we're kind of down here. Those are all those grants we get primarily for capital projects. So they really ebb and flow depending on the progress of those projects. So that'll be more of a year-end adjustment where we look at those and say, okay, we're 80% complete the project, so let's recognize 80% of that grant revenue. But just to kind of remind you sort of what types of grants are in there this year, we've got our NG 911 grant in there, which was $3 million plus. We've got the Civic Center grant in there of $3.8 million. Transit Exchange grant was in here. That's, we'll touch on that when we get to the capital piece, but, that's looking pretty likely that's a 2025 project. We've got the Waterfront Pathway funding in there. Our transit grant from BC Transit is in there as well. The provincial grant is in there. Last year we had the Growing Communities grant, so that's why you see that one's a little higher than this year, but again, this is primarily all those capital project grants that are in there.
And Chris, just for clarity, where that 24 budget is that based on if we did 100% of the work and got 100% of the grant in 2024, that's where the revenues would be, or is that some that we had applied for and don't necessarily have?
Yeah, so the budgeted amount is if we completed all of those projects as budgeted at the end of the year, that's how much grant revenue we'd have. What we're showing now, I haven't made an adjustment for, looking at some of those, hey, the Civics, 80% done, so theoretically, that bar should be quite a bit higher. This is more just on a cash basis of what we've received for the year. Those adjustments will sort of happen closer to the end of the year.
So it's pretty accurate in the amount of grant funding that we have received for these projects.
Yeah, that's what we've received, yeah. Some we haven't, get reimbursed after the fact. Some we got ahead of time. They're just sitting in deferred.
I guess
revenue.
maybe in a different way. The high bar there
Yes.
is the amount that we've been approved for
Correct.
grants.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So those things that I rattle off, those were all approved. NG 911, Civic Center, our transit funding, all of that are all approved grants.
You know, almost
Yep.
$60 million
Yeah.
worth of grants that we
Yeah. Correct.
secured.
Yeah. Okay. Just a bit of a different way of looking at that. Of course, we don't live in a perfect world where, things are arriving and we're 3/4 of the way through the year, so it's all at 75%, but you can kind of look at that and sort of see, where we are at compared to 3/4 of the year complete. So just a few of those that maybe we could touch on. Our unconditional grants, these are the things we get, our small communities grant, traffic fine sharing grant. The library receives quite a few provincial grants as well. Their grants, timing wise, they sometimes get those a little bit ahead of September, sometimes a little bit after. So we're right on track of where we should be for those grants this year. Water and sewer user fees, of course, we bill those out at the beginning of the year. There's some that still come in quarterly, so we'll still see a fourth quarter for those folks that, we have some metered customers that pay quarterly, so we'll see those come in, but the majority of it comes in right at the beginning of the year, and we're right where we should be for this time. The transit user fees, I thought I'd flag here because it's looking like we're quite a bit down on, the passes and coins and things that we sell. But really the difference there is due to timing, and it's the new UMO fee package that BC Transit's rolled out. So they've had some challenges, I guess, getting things rolling on their side. So, April, May, June, July, all of those we will see hit in October this month. A bit of a catch up, then we'll see it monthly after that. So I just checked in with them to try and get an update of, what we have so far. So we've got another $68,000 in pass revenue coming in from UMO. And just to kind of put that into perspective, I was taking a look at September. So in September, we sold $12,000 of sort of that traditional, transit pass that, or semester pass that people are used to, and $31,000 through UMO. So quite a bit more on the UMO product, even though right now you can buy both of them. I think, we're seeing 3/4 or so, 2/3 coming in through UMO. So as of December 1st, I think we will no longer be selling those traditional transit passes, but we've already got, the majority of folks transferred over to the UMO, so that's good news.
Councillor Tate, Councillor.
You're going to say what I was going to say.
So there's not going to be a semester pass anymore? I don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah, so I think that it's sort of a 30-day pass, so you buy the pass, and whenever you buy it, it's good for another 30 days like that.
But the semester pass is September to December, and then
Yeah.
January to April, I believe.
I'll have to check I can't recall if that's still available or not. I won't.
It was for this semester, but
Yes.
you're
yeah.
saying
On the UMO, was it?
Not on.
on UMO, no,
Yeah.
you bought the physical pass.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'll-
to clarify, are you saying there will no longer be paper passes available, little cardboard passes available?
Yeah, now any that are floating out there that people have, tickets, things like that, they're just like stamps, you can just keep using them.
So it would have to be cash or UMO.
Correct,
That could be a big change for some folks.
yeah. I mean, you could still get a physical card and then charge it with UMO. It's just that you wouldn't have one that say, oh, this one says it expires in September, and then you throw it away. You have to come in and get another one. You can just reload it.
Okay.
So you
Like
don't
your
have to
Compass.
use your phone, you
So
can use
like
a
a
card.
It's like your
Card or
Compass
Oyster
Pass.
card.
Yeah.
Like
your Compass
I have a Compass Pass for Vancouver. It's like a Compass Pass. You can go online and throw another 50 on it whenever you kind of want, and it tells you Usually, I don't know what it's like, I don't ride the bus here, but, you go on and it tells you got $17.50 left, and then it tells you, $3.40 won't get you where you're going, so you either have to ante up or, whip out a credit card, or in Vancouver, you can pay off, of course, on your credit card.
So you can still come into City Hall, you can still go to the library, just get a physical card that you can load up and then ride the bus. And then you can just recharge that each time.
Thank you.
And then maybe the last piece on here is Hydro. We'll get Hydro in on Friday to do sort of their longer half-day presentation, but if you recall from the first kind of presentation they had, we're trending to be just a little bit under budget for Hydro revenues. Totally weather dependent though. It'll, that could change in a week depending on how things go, but that's kind of the forecast. Challenging to predict that sort of thing though. Okay, skipping over to the expense side of things. I'll, again, just touch on a few of these in each of the slides, so we'll kind of get to general government on the next slide, but protective services, a little bit higher than it was last year. Not too far off from where we should be budget-wise, but there's a few ups and a few downs, and I'll kind of go through that a little bit with you. On the police side, we're trending a little bit under budget for the year. That's before factoring in any sort of attendance enhancement type compensation that they will give to the department there, but because I think that's just starting on this current pay period. But they don't have anyone in that inspector role, of course, since for the last few months, and I think they're looking now likely February when that individual will be here. So there'll be some time before that position gets filled. On the reverse side, though, with fire, we just had the chief in here, but they've had quite a bit of a higher call volume. I think I checked with the stats that the chief provided me, and it looks like their call volume's up 16% this year over what it was last year. So a little bit of overtime and that type of thing. We also had a new collective agreement that was signed with them, and a bit of catch up from, I think, 2020 up until the current time. Each year we accrued an amount that was to kind of, set aside for that retro pay. It didn't quite meet what the retro pay ended up being, so there's a one-time kind of charge in here as well. So between that and the police side of things, you're seeing a little bit of a higher protective services cost this year versus last year. Again, switching over to the transit side here, and I'll again touch on some of the ones in the middle on the next slide, but on transit, higher budget this year, of course, because in April we took over the West Kootenay transit program, so higher expenses this year versus last year, but we're tracking, well within budget, so I think that's great news. Still some transition pieces with, bringing the KLW folks into our collective agreement, but I think those are progressing, and we should have clarity on that pretty shortly. And I'll be meeting with the team as well in the next week or so to build a budget for next year. This was a learning year for us to kind of look at where we, where we need more resources, where we were, where we hit things on the mark, and so we have an opportunity now. Their fiscal year, our new agreement would be from April, but to kind of look at that and see, what's an accurate budget on a go-forward basis going to be after having this kind of first year as a bit of a learning year. But I think we've done quite well, and like I say, looking at the budget, I think we're tracking well within where we thought we'd be. Okay. Hydro, again, I won't maybe spend very much time on this because they are coming on Friday, so they'll be able to give a bit more of a holistic view of sort of how operations are going there. General government, we are tracking, less than we were last year. A couple of things in here. There's a few one-time projects that are grant funded that, haven't quite kicked off yet, so that's why a little bit down. But also in here is those, and we spoke about it at the Q2 update, those encampment costs are in here as well. So that's kind of brought us up probably a little higher than where we normally would have been at this time.
Under general government.
Under general government,
So
yep.
are all of those one-time expenditures? No, they're not, sorry.
Yeah.
I get that.
So general government's kind of got the encampment piece, protective services, if you're sort of looking at those one-time costs.
Yeah.
Be more on that fire side of things, that retro pay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll get to the sewer in a second, but that's, the force main repairs and inspection costs that we had in there. Environmental health services, it's tracking a little bit higher than it was this time last year. I know the crews there for our resource recovery pickup are working full on. They've staffed up. The overtime's actually looking a little bit better than it was last year. There's still some overtime in there, but I know they've resourced accordingly to make sure that they can do as much as they can using regular hours as opposed to overtime hours. But it's just the nature of, the amount of work, and to get it done within that 1 week and within a day for each of the zones. I mean, that's what's required. And I know we were talking, General Manager Johnson and I, just before the meeting on, some of the thoughts going forward on how do we right-size this and how do we sort of look at some ways of doing this, more efficiently. And I don't, have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I might just add, we'll discuss it a bit more as we go through the budget process, but, we've had the same resources for the garbage week that we have for some time. Like Chris said, a few things have been switched around to allow for better coverage and less overtime as a result. But it's certainly something that we'll be looking at in the upcoming year, rather than just acknowledging that, hey, there's more homes, obviously more to do, so we could throw resources at it. The other option is to look how we're doing it as well to ensure that we're using those resources effectively. So, very much akin to the conversation around dispatch with firefighters, in the sense that it requires a good look at, see how we do things. That's something that we're going to be reviewing in 25 and we'll be discussing with you, I'm sure.
Water and wastewater, as I mentioned, probably in the Q2 update, really on the wastewater, the sewer side of that, it's, what's taken us over is those force main inspection and repairs. There's probably a little bit more to do in 2024, but that's sort of that third one-time cost that's kind of brought us over there. Last year, we finished on the water side a little bit under budget. This year, probably looking like we'll be closer to budget. And on the sewer, based on those repair and maintenance costs, it's likely would be over budget. I think we're at the water sewer budget meeting, we projected that we'd probably be over budget for the sewer utility expenses. Okay, questions on that before I kind of touch on a few capital projects? All right. How am I doing for time?
5:47, 5:48 actually.
All right. So, I do have an update on the hydro mill station, but I maybe just park that one in the essence of time because, like I say, they are coming on Friday. Maybe the one sort of interesting piece there that I can share is that I think they were mentioning that the second transformer is en route currently and will arrive by crane on Monday, so that's kind of exciting. But again, they can talk a little bit more about that on Friday when they're here. Finished water storage, not really much to update at this point. It's still kind of in that tendering phase. And on the sewer SIP relining, they're in town, of course, this week. I did talk to Colin Innes today. He said that they're sort of doing that alleyway by the fire hall currently. They're expected to be done their work by Friday. So I don't know if there's anything else to update on that. Civic roof. I think CAO had a few things he wanted to update everybody on the civic roof project.
Sure. First of all, I think a number of you were able to go on the tour and saw what the how extensive that project was.
Eye-opening.
Yeah, you saw it after we had removed a significant amount of electrical, mechanical, et cetera, out of the way so they could get that steel up there. I did get a chance to go tour it yesterday. They're pretty well done, the steel. There's the last two trusses. There's some end pieces that were up there that still needs to be installed. They're still working on those end plates. I think everyone saw how those steel trusses attached to the structure, so they're basically bolted to the existing outside walls. So there's some, I noticed that some of that work was still going on again with those last two trusses. They are also coming back and grouting all those voids that are in those end plates so that they're solid surfaces, tying the existing trusses back to the old trusses. So as far as that structural steel work, they're, getting very close to having that completed. That was obviously critical to get that done before snow, because that structure will be now fine for people to work in if we get a snowfall. And we've just awarded the jacking contract. I don't know if they explained, but they're going to jack those existing wood trusses up to put the load on the steel trusses. So that is, we just awarded that contract. It's a local contractor, Red Dog. And so that will allow that to happen more quickly. So once that work is done, we're feeling structurally the building is sound, and we'll be working with our consultants whether there's partial occupancy that will be allowed in that building. Namely, the gymnastics would be the tenant that might be able to go back in, but we need our consultants to sign off on that. So we're working on that. As far as, we also met with the Civic Theater Society because we're getting close to, we're starting to reinstall what we took apart. So I think you noticed all the stuff we took apart. Now we have to re-put all that back together, and we need to know kind of what they want us to do and not want us to do. We also need to finish the hazmat, that the ceiling material will all be removed and drywalled. So we're in that process, and again, we need to hear from the Civic Theater Society what they want to do. They still need access into that cavity to do their project, so we can't close that up totally. There's they had paused their meetings while they were doing some internal work, but we're at a position that we need them to give us direction of how they want us to leave this theater. And basically our message to them is, we want to see that they have the funds in place, their scope is matches the funding they have. And what we can't have is them to start a project and we end up with a building that's half kind of renovated. So that will be sort of the work we do with them.
Sorry, could you repeat that sentence? I didn't understand it.
Well, so we have a choice now. We can bring that building back up to operating, that it could be operated. But if the Theater Society wants us not to bring it to that level, we need to have an assurance that they have the funding to do their work and bring that building back up to an operational level. So it looks like, we have a very aggressive schedule here. Just to let you know, there's 56 items on this schedule to do this work, and that revolves around everything from windows to structural steel to final cleanup to deficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. So a project like this has a significant amount of things to accomplish. It's not just getting the steel up there. The Civic Theater Society, tentatively, we're hoping to be able to give that building to them at the end of this year. And they would be able to hopefully get in that building and start their project. The Civic Arena, as you saw, we poured that shear wall. They were doing the second pour for the electrical room today. I think that pour happened today. But what we need to, the last part of that is installing those end braces on the existing steel trusses there, and that's part of the seismic work. So we've just, I think, received the design for that. It's getting priced now. It is hopefully, if we're all fingers crossed, we're scheduled to try to get that done by the end of November. So that's the hope there. And once we get that work done in the arena and completed that structural work in the Civic Center roof, then the engineer can sign off on the structural side of that building. And then we can focus on just reinstating mechanical, electrical, painting, patching, drywall, all those sorts of things. And windows. So Dance Umbrella is, as you saw from the progression of that work, we're starting at the Civic Theater side and working towards the Dance Umbrella side. So they're looking more like the end of January before we'd be out of the Dance Umbrella space.
Councillor Page.
I'm curious when we're looking at the structural design for the Civic Arena
Yeah.
roof specifically, if we're thinking at all about load of what, and this is just an extra, but are we looking at load for potentially putting like solar panels on the roof at some point? It's a huge southern exposure. It's large. Might be quite cost effective to reduce utility costs within that building long term.
We can add that to the list.
Just,
Yep. No,
Not to say we'll do it, but make sure
Yep.
what we put
Yeah.
up there could support it in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So that's where we're at with the Civic Center project. As far as the Civic Arena, we intend to have this workshop in early 2025. We progressed that to engineering design of a solution for the current under capacity of that roof. We haven't vetted that, we haven't priced that yet, but we will do that in time to bring that to you in early 2025 at that workshop. So we're just in the process of doing that work. We're focused on getting out of this one part before we kind of shift into the other part. Any questions on the roof project at this stage?
Councillor Tate, Councillor Page.
My question isn't on the roof projects. It's like, are we finished?
No, so I'm going to ask
Okay.
for the pleasure of council if we recess now, and seeing as how I believe the Chief Financial Officer will be staying with us for the course of the meeting, that I'm actually looking at, we would move the capital discussion, because we just started it, but we would move basically the capital discussion to sort of item 11, sort of C, that we would have the meeting, and then we would come back just before item number 12, the city manager's verbal report, to finish the Q3. So I was at the pleasure of, we do have a long walk to get to our meal this evening, so that would be my suggestion, and if everybody's in favor of
Yeah.
recess with moving that to just above 12. Okay, moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? All
It's the first time I used it and I did it 3 times in a row.
We have
Can you rent your Uber feeds?
I know it's hot. Now after all that running around, it's warm. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We have a nice gathering in the gallery this evening, and if I could have a motion to reconvene the meeting, Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor, opposed, and that carries. Thank you, everybody. Our first item up tonight is a cultural presentation, the West Kootenay Regional Arts Commission, and we have Kayleen Linz of the West Kootenay Regional Arts Council to provide an overview of the West Kootenay Regional Arts Council's audiences and community engagement programs that regularly showcase the rich array of Nelson-based artists. So, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you all for having me. When I was here last year, I had a very detailed scripted presentation for you because I was talking about the stats that we had just commissioned. And I thought I would just give you a brief reminder that those are still on our website. Please reference them and use them at any time. We've also just added in some details there for the regional district of Kootenay boundary, if that's of interest as well. So we've fleshed out that data a little bit. I will be much more informal today because I did not have a chance at that meeting to tell you about some of our other programming, and I think it's really exciting because it highlights the rich diversity of artists that we have here in the Nelson area, and I think it can be a really powerful tool for the city to promote the immense creativity that we have here and to showcase what an amazing cultural sector that we have. So first out of those programs, I thought I would talk a little bit about Culture Tour. This is a program that we run generally in the second weekend of August. It is a self-guided tour that takes place all around the Columbia Basin. We have several artists up in Belmont this year, which is really exciting. And we get thousands of visitors out to artist studios, heritage locations, all sorts of venues. It's completely free to take part. And what we've learned during surveys is that generally people stick pretty close to home. So it's a great opportunity for culture goers and castle guard to come over to Nelson, that kind of exchange, which is really lovely. This year, let me show you our artists that we had here in Nelson this past summer. We had a total of 18 local artists. You can see the map there. We had some really established artists like Michael Graham. He opens up his home studio every year. It's a very quirky space. We had Earth Studios showcasing Diane Walter's pottery studio. That's always a lovely garden as well. Always nice to get out and see some beautiful landscaping while you're looking at art. We also have, oh gosh, just such a wide range of artistic practices. We've got Amy with Elk Jewelry Studio. We have a lovely artist in residence at Oxenden Art Center who's taking part in the events as well. So there's really something for everyone. And I just wanted to highlight this event because it's such a great opportunity to get out and talk with artists. We often hear at the Arts Council that artists perceive that it's very difficult to build relationships with their municipality. And as much as I know this council is deeply supportive of the cultural community, sometimes they don't feel it because we're all a little isolated and siloed in our day-to-day work. So this is a great opportunity just to show up, say hello, take a look at how they do their work. Nelson Studio 88 joined us this year to showcase the classes that they run and their offerings to the community. So it's really a bit of everything. That's what I like to say. It's from a disciplinary perspective, there's something for everyone on this tour. It's a great opportunity to shop for Christmas presents as well, which is really lovely if you want to get a head start on that. And it's just a really lovely event. I think the White Monkey Art Museum was the hit of the tour. This is a couple who came out of the film set design world of Vancouver, and their home is just a wonderland of sci-fi artifacts and all sorts of things. So a lot of people were stopping by there this time. So in total, all across the Columbia Basin, we had 96 venues this year. So it's really a wide-ranging event, and it just continues to get better each and every year with an increasing diversity of artists. So that's one offering for you, to come out and just enjoy the community. And the second weekend of August, I invite you to come out and take part. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about Articulate magazine. So you might have seen Articulate out in the world. We distribute it for free in public venues, including restaurants, cafes, hotels. And Articulate has been published since 2002, highlighting artists, events, heritage venues, news in the cultural community, conversation around issues in the sector. It really takes a deep dive into all of the work that's being produced in the West Kootenays and beyond as well. Our catchment area for this is the Columbia Basin. I brought our most recent issue with me, so you've got those on your desk. There's a really lovely profile there of the late Judy Waugh and a retrospective review of her retrospective at the gallery that just wrapped not too long ago. That's written by Bessie. It's a really beautiful piece. So I encourage you to read that and pay tribute to an artist with a real local legacy here. I want to mention Articulate as well because it is evolving right now. We are just heading into production on our first annual expanded issue. So we're moving from a biannual production model to a single annual expanded issue. We've rebranded. We have a brand new logo that will be revealed and a new cover design that's coming to that issue. I'm really thrilled about that. And if it feels like that's a decline in cultural coverage, fear not. We are coupling that shift in the print schedule with the launch of a website. And the goal with that was to spread the news about our local artists even wider. You know, it's really key in creating opportunities for artists to get news about their work out to cultural programmers and curators in areas like Southern Alberta, in the coast. We wanted to make it much easier to highlight the incredible high caliber work that's happening here in the Kootenays. So we will have that. We will have the website launching shortly, and we also have our podcast, Vibrant Basin, which is it's its own standalone brand, but it is a similar bent in looking at the artists that we have here, and we can go a little bit deeper into their stories. And what I really love about Vibrant Basin is that you really get a picture of why people are choosing to pursue their artistic practices here in this area. So similar to the profiles that we have in Articulate magazine, the episodes in Vibrant Basin talk not only about the artistic work that these artists produce, but their whole life story and how they arrived here in the Kootenays. And I really feel like these can be such great cultural reckoning pieces. So I would love for all of you to share and to amplify this work, because it really does paint our community in an excellent light. We're hoping to come out with a new season very soon. That will likely launch in the spring. So we'll come out with another 6 episodes highlighting artists across the region. I think you might enjoy the episode with Carlo Alpos, who many of you might know. He's a videographer and documentarian. He has a really lovely conversation as part of this podcast where he talks about his new documentary project, in which he turns the camera on himself and investigates his relationship to his Filipino heritage, particularly what it's like being a racialized person in a predominantly white community like Nelson. So that's a really lovely piece. So that's a whole local cultural media ecosystem for you to enjoy. We have our print magazine. We'll be again launching the new issue. It's for 2025, but you should start seeing it around town in December. That will be a really great piece. So we'll have our podcast, and stay tuned for the launch of the website as well. I also wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we have advertising across all of these assets as well. This is our rate sheet here, and I recently had a survey out to our regular readers of Articulate, and our reader loyalty is really quite outstanding. 83% of respondents to our survey told us that they read every single issue of Articulate magazine. So when it comes to things like trying to get public feedback on the OCP or other areas of community engagement, I think this is a really great opportunity to reach folks who are popping into their podcast app on a daily basis but may not be picking up a print newspaper. So I do hope you'll consider these avenues as a way to reach local culturally engaged folks. And just do keep abreast to learn about the amazing artists that we have here in the region. We are a grant-making organization as well. I won't speak too much to that side of it because I could talk all day about the grants that we offer. But those are funded by Columbia Basin Trust, and that's our CACA program, the Kootenay Cultural Alliance. If you're curious about that financial support that we offer to artists across the Columbia Basin, you're more than welcome to check out the website as well and give me a call at any time. And I probably just flew through that. So we have questions.
Wow, yeah. Councillor Woodward has a question.
So I was wondering how you're finding housing artists, because that is a challenge in this area. How do you work through that?
Yes, yeah, we hear regularly actually from artists who regrettably have to move because they are struggling with finding affordable housing, particularly for them and their families. Right? When they're a solo artist, there's a little more available to them in terms of finding shared houses, those kinds of solutions. But we're finding working artists with families, it's very challenging for them to stay in their area. So thank you for raising that. Another challenge is working space, particularly for artists with very particular needs like ventilation. If you're a jewelry maker or you're firing pottery, finding those working spaces is also very challenging.
And what about, sorry, supplemental, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. What about when you bring people in to do what do you call that? I'm sorry. The
Residents?
residency, thank you.
Residencies.
And finding housing for people that want to do art here for a while.
Temporary accommodations.
You know, is that a challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think my colleague Julia over at Oxygen, I
Yes.
think would probably be able to speak to that very well. We don't do a lot of direct programming ourselves. As a grant-making body, we certainly receive a lot of applications for residency programs. We run a mentorship and masterclass program that entails bringing artists into the area. We have not heard as much challenge when it comes to those temporary accommodations.
so it's
It really is
long-term.
about the living and live workspaces that we need to challenge.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Any comments? I just want to say thank you. Councillor Payne.
Sorry, it was interesting when you were saying, Kaylee, about the fact that the artists don't feel as connected as, and you said one opportunity for that is going to the culture tour, which I love and try and get to, but there's so many venues, it's really challenging to get to. Can you think of any other ways that we could do better at that?
Yeah. I mean, I do think highlighting and sharing the work of artists is really great. The city, of course, takes part in the visual arts.
Public art and sponsoring events. And
Yeah, that's always great. Sponsoring events certainly is a great way to show that support in a tangible way. Our events are just a small sliver of what goes on in town, so just showing up means a lot, for sure. And I do think specific invitations to provide input on things like housing affordability, and I think just generally, I believe I mentioned this last year too, just generally recognizing that artists are small business owners and that they do run businesses in this town, they have large audiences in the community, and anything that can support that segment of the population, I think those measures should take artists' voices into account. So just being invited to the table in some of your regular processes, I think goes a really long way to showing that the city really values arts and culture.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Councillor Tate.
Thanks for all the work you do. Thanks for being an umbrella for like such a broad spectrum of different types of artists in our community. I was curious if through your strategic planning or any strategic directions that you have, anything new and exciting that's coming up. I think you've mentioned the change from the print to the digital. Is there anything else on the horizon that you could share with us?
Ooh, I wasn't going to talk about this, but since you asked me, we are currently actually seeking resources to develop a regional cultural strategy. And what I would really love to outline in that document, with the support of all of the municipalities in the region, is how stronger relationships can be forged between municipalities and the arts. I just came from the Creative Cities Summit over in Vancouver, and that conference is about 95% municipal workers and municipal cultural service officers. And I was really struck by the lack of engagement that a lot of those departments had with cultural nonprofits, other organizations, and individual artists, with the exclusion of some grant-making programs or direct public art commissions. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to have dialogue between working artists and even those cultural departments. So painting a picture of best practices, some of which I think are enacted here in Nelson. Having a cultural liaison like Joy Barrett is a wonderful role that I wish more municipalities in the Kootenays had. Of course, Leslie joining us for our cultural development committee meetings is a wonderful way to maintain relationships with council. So some of those things are working really well here in Nelson, and my work is how do we share that with the rest of the region. I think Revelstoke has some really great models in place as well when it comes to public art committees within their municipal infrastructure. So that project would really be about creating 18 municipal profiles to really look at what is that relationship between council and the arts community in each of those areas. Mapping the relationship between cultural work and economic development in the area, so that can be a really strong tool for you in identifying any gaps that can be addressed. And essentially how arts can support the sectoral and regional development that you are pursuing socially and economically. Really what I'm seeing my job as more and more is how to position the arts as an ally in local and regional development, something that's not off to the side, but can be really central to the work that you do in a whole lot of other areas, and how to bring artists to the table in those conversations. So we're still early days in trying to bring that project to fruition, but I would love to have a regionally relevant document that I could share with all of you to guide your planning efforts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
So I'm just thinking that when we get together for our annual regional area conference, so AKBLG, the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Government, it's always harder to say it out loud than it is. Would that be a place where it might be like that normally happens in the spring, Kelly? Would that be a place where it might be appropriate to present some of that strategy to the regional governance?
This coming spring?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite possibly. It depends if our county council grant is submitted. To be completely honest. Yeah, let's keep chatting about that, Leslie,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, I'll put that on my,
Yeah, something that I find challenging within the regional cultural sector is helping artists and artistic organizations stay in touch with other municipalities and other areas in the region. Of course, it's incredibly difficult to sustain an artistic career in the region at large. A lot of artists who do that successfully are traveling back and forth to the coast, to Calgary, those kinds of things. It's imperative that within the region we have really strong local connections so that an artist in residence can do a showcase in Nelson, head over to Trail and go over to the Visac Gallery and do a showcase there. We need increasing partnerships between the different areas in this region in order to better support our artists. So I think conversations that happen at a regional level like that are really important.
okay, I'll make a note, thanks.
And just so you know that Councillor Page is the current president of the AKBLG, and I do see he's put a note in his book too, because he is influential in deciding what kind of presentations that we receive during our 3-day meeting when we have it. So I know that I know full well that Councillor Payne will keep a pin underneath his chair to ensure that he gets that on for discussion and an opportunity for you to come to present what you might have, but also even to just say what you said to us in terms of the importance of having a more local, regional. I mean, I know artists that work here that don't sell any of their, or show at all here. They only show in the major urban centers, because what I also hear from artists, I go to the Columbia Basin tour every year, and what I hear here is that what their cost of production of what they're making, and the feeling sort of when you try to sell it locally that it's not, let's just be honest, worth as much if it's like here versus what you can get in a major city if you're showing there, and that's also very unfortunate.
Yeah, that is a question that I always have in the back of my mind as well, is how do we shift perceptions of the value of local art, because these artists are showcasing and selling work in Vancouver, in other areas across the country. You know, we have a funded artist who, Naomi Burke, she recently was taking part in Toronto Fashion Week as an Indigenous designer. You know, there is so much back and forth, and yet that is still the perception. Just because artists choose to live rurally, that should not be a reflection of the caliber of their work, because it is competitive in these larger markets, but I don't have as much access to it.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, if it hadn't been for the Columbia Basin tour, in terms of things that I've been able to add to my own sort of personal collection, is that I've now, because of the tour, I have works from Kimberly Hyatt, Earth Studios, Martha Stoko, who I absolutely love her whimsical art, and Lainey Benson. And if it hadn't been for the tour, I don't think that I would have ever come across the works by these people. So it is of value to be able to have this tour, and it's something that I could say that I really enjoy every year, and I do encourage everybody to get out and see it. So.
Thanks so much, Janice. I blow my art budget every single.
Yeah, it is tough. This year I was a little bit more like, oh, okay, I can't maybe buy anything this year, but I now know these artists, and it's wonderful to be able to have that relation to talk. Councillor Payne. Paige.
I have nothing so eloquent to add, but something a bit more operational. The call for proposals for the convention is typically from a set list, so I would definitely send an email, make sure your organization is on that list. It's admin@akblg.ca. And just make sure our our executive director has put you on the list, because you'll be there now and into the future.
You're getting that right, AKBLG?
Yep, .ca. And those will go out sometime in January, February, and then there'll be a couple weeks and months there figuring out who we actually put into convention or not. That's all done by committee. I have some sway.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, and moving on then to item number 10, public participation. And I know that there's at least 3 people in the back that are interested in participating. And I'm going to go from left to right, my right. That's backwards for you guys. I'm going to just read the rules regarding public participation. City Council welcomes comments from the public on issues that are dealing with or other issues of interest to the public. Before speaking, please state your name and area of residence, city or RDCK. Comments from the public will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. This is not the forum for complaints, which are dealt with by staff through the established complaint procedure. Council will not make any decisions at this meeting about the matter you raise, but may refer the matter to staff for follow-up. Speakers must not address topics that relate to matters for which a public hearing must be held prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers shall address all comments through the mayor or presiding member. Please avoid clapping or displaying any emotional responses, as such actions will not be permitted. Maintaining composed demeanor ensures that all opinions shared can be heard in a setting that is unbiased as possible. So, come on up.
Okay, how does he turn it on?
blue. There.
Are you together?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
as a group.
okay.
So, mayor and council.
So just before
Oh,
you start,
sorry. My
names,
name-
please?
Yeah.
And where you live?
My name is Carol Vogt. I live at 680 Johnstone Road, which is just on RDCK property.
And I'm Richard Nelson, and I live on Johnstone Road as well, in RDCK.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
We have these if you want to sure pass them around.
Now, please,
Good to go?
good to go.
All right, Mayor and Council, this letter presents concerns by community members and business owners in the area surrounding the proposed BC Housing Nelson Cares Society development at 687 Highway 3A, Nelson, BC. Firstly, we wish to express our backing of supportive housing. The experience surrounding the transition of the North Shore Inn to provide 7 in-need individuals with housing has been a relatively positive one. BC Housing and Nelson Care Society now intend on installing temporary modular housing to accommodate an additional 21 residents while undertaking construction to renovate the former North Shore Inn into 30 permanent supportive housing residents. These temporary modular housing units would remain in place from fall 2024 until spring 2026. Area residents and business owners are expressing concerns regarding this development, primarily the neglect for public consultation beyond a letter sent September 5th, 2024, informing some but not all area residents of the change in property use. The potential lack of alignment with the Local Government Act requirements for public notification. The distance to emergency services and lack of identified site security and on-site support services. Additional demand on the water system for 30 full-time unit residents and associated staff. The visual aesthetic of modular trailers entering one of 3 corridors into Nelson for a period exceeding 1 year. A local business presented these concerns to BC Housing via the email address they had provided for questions regarding the project in their September 5th letter. Their response was as follows. Thank you for your email. Due to the provincial election, BC Housing will be unable to respond to public inquiries from September 21st, 2024 until a new provincial government forms between late November and mid-December. As area residents, businesses, and taxpayers that fund these types of developments, we feel it is paramount to be given the opportunity to present our questions and concerns to the City of Nelson. We are requesting that the City of Nelson engage all stakeholders in a collaborative public meeting and pause the installation of the modular units.
And we have gone around and collected a bunch of signatures as well from the local people. So that's
So
the goal.
far, it shows 25% of the residents that live on the Johnston area road.
I think this is, you already gave us these two, right?
Yes, I was printing it all. Yeah, sure.
This is a copy, you've got the original?
I got the originals here if you wanted the originals, or?
Corporate officer.
Sonia. Yeah, and I didn't get a copy of
I'm
whatever that it was
sorry.
circulated, but
I read it.
We've seen that.
I have lots.
Same one, yeah? Thanks. Can you pass that? It was 2 pages.
this is the 19th, this is the neighborhood. Yeah, there's a whole bunch here. I'll take a look at them later.
Anybody has a copy? Okay, so on a personal note, Carol Vogt, resident of Johnston Road. Madam Mayor, can you tell me how far you are from me? What's the distance between your seat and mine?
I don't know,
20 feet
20
maybe?
I'm gonna go 20 feet.
yeah, 20 feet.
So when Nelson City Council decided that it was a good idea to house all of the homeless population in Nelson in 2020 when the pandemic hit, this is how far away I was from watching 3 bodies come out of the back of that hotel. This is how far away my living room, my front door is from watching emergency services on a daily basis. I completely understand that there's a housing issue in Nelson, and I completely understand about the opioid crisis. But what I don't understand is the verbiage being used between supportive housing, affordable housing, and emergency housing. And all 3 of these terms seem to be coming into play when it comes to the North Shore Inn. I've sat and had coffee with a couple of the 7 that live there right now. They are on disability. They can't find an apartment or anywhere to live that's affordable because they literally receive $1,500 a month from the provincial government to survive. That is what the residents of Johnston Road consider to be supportive housing. I know of senior women whose husband has died and their kids sold everything. And now where do they go? That's supportive housing. I myself personally do not believe the North Shore Inn is the right place to fill with the homeless population in Nelson. We tried it. It doesn't work. Before this project gets any further, all of us, as a group and as individuals, would like to have the conversation with council, with BC Housing, with Nelson Cares. They're struggling. Nelson Cares doesn't have enough staff. Every single one of their projects, staffing is a challenge. There is no staff at the North Shore Inn. There's a manager there from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and there's a security guard every hour outside of that. I asked them, what happens if somebody ODs? There's naloxone kits on site. Okay, what happens if that doesn't work? The security guard calls the Nelson Police. The Nelson Police get 20 calls a day. Tomorrow's Wednesday. All the federal or provincial money is going to be landing in people's pockets. And we are going to hear sirens for 36 hours straight. I sit on my back deck, 20 feet away. It's constant. So is the North Shore Inn going to be developed as affordable, supportive, or emergency? Because there is no, pardon me, there is no support on site right now. They don't even have a commercial kitchen in that building. They barbecue all winter long. And I really don't want the kids walking back and forth to the bus, watching another body bag come out the back door. 20 feet, that's my yard.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Person in the orange shirt, please.
I
Hi.
just wanted to introduce myself and share information about a new service here in Nelson. My name is Kat Spears. I live on Pass Creek Road, and I'm the founder of Team Consent. And so Team Consent is a new outreach program here in Nelson. Is anybody familiar with it?
Yep.
Thank you. So we are a full-on like grassroots, boots on the ground harm reduction organization. For the first year, we were out approximately once a month, and so we're out on Baker Street once a month. The first year we were out on the long weekends. We're out from about 10 p.m. until 2 or 3 a.m. We have backpacks of granola bars, water bottles, juice boxes, and so our goal is to prevent sexualized violence. So we're watching for drug-facilitated sexual assaults, like drink spiking. We're watching for vulnerable women. We're watching for predators. People recognize us and they'll say, oh, you know, there's somebody over there on the sidewalk over there that I'm concerned about. We go into the drinking establishments because, of course, everybody knows the correlation between alcohol and substance use and sexualized violence. So we go into the bars, we do a quick walkthrough because we're wearing these very bright shirts or bright hoodies, and they say here to help on the back. And we have backpacks of water and juice boxes. And we usually introduce ourselves with Starburst because everybody loves a Starburst. And we have the lanyards with Good Night Out, that's our funder, and the Nelson Community Services on the back. The sexual assault response team, the transition house, victim services. So as I said, yes, so we're wanting to prevent sexualized violence. If we run into a group of men, we'll chat and go through a scenario. Oh, say you're out, you meet somebody tonight, you take them home, and then suddenly she says, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then we run through a skit of how can you accept no gracefully, and just kind of putting the words with the men, going through a situation that you might hear the word no, and we want you to accept that gracefully. And similarly, if we run into like groups of women, then we'll ask them, you know, you go home with somebody and then suddenly you kind of get the ick. What are some things that you can say or do to get out of that situation? So it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of communication. The program also runs in Vancouver. Our first year we were on our own here. We were funded through Interior Health. And then a group in Vancouver called Good Night Out Vancouver. They've now given us funding through a Women and Gender Equity federal grant. And so we've got funding for 2 years, and now we're out 2 or 3 times a month. And we're also doing education. And so we were at Selkirk College 2 weeks ago. We're at Selkirk College again this week. We're at the Sequoia School doing consent education. So our focus is all about consent. We have about 10 10 team members right now. And so we're trained in bystander intervention, we're trained in ethical consent, we're trained in de-escalation. We don't generally get involved, like if if there's a situation on the street, we'll definitely come slowly up and keep our distance and see if we can help, which we definitely have. We've definitely, de-escalated some street situations, but we'll go into the bar. I mean, Bloom is our only club here, and so we're always just very welcomed. They're always really happy to see us. We go in, I spend a lot of time in the bathroom at Bloom because that's where a lot of communication goes on between women in the bathroom. I do some hair holding if somebody's vomiting. We give them some water and some gum and some Starburst, and so we will put women in a taxi, we'll help find a cell phone, we'll help find a lost girlfriend, or if somebody is not able to manage on their own, we'll find their friends that they came with, we'll call a taxi, we'll send them home, we'll give them kind of whatever support they need. And if there is any sexual assault or any larger incidents, then we even can follow through with them the next day, and we'll follow up and we'll check up on them and give them whatever support they need.
Thank you, Kate. I let Carol and Richard, because there's two of them, have a bit more time, and I've allowed you a bit more time. I'm always a bit conscious about this because the next time that there's public meeting and then people will say, well, I watched that last public meeting and I timed it and you gave everybody 4 minutes and now you're telling me I only have 3 minutes, so.
I think I have just spewed out everything that I wanted to share.
So,
I just wanted to share that
thank you very
information.
much for coming forward, and I believe that you have been sent information to potentially come in the spring. We have a very long list of people that have asked to have to be a delegation, and I believe that information has been forwarded to you. And if you'd like to come back at that time and have more time,
Okay.
I believe that's an option that's been given to you.
Okay.
So, anyways, thank you. Very nice
Thank
for
you.
meeting you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks.
And thank you, Carol and Richard, for taking the time to come forward to raise your concerns regarding the North Shore Inn. So did I get everybody?
Can I just ask one quick question? Could I be excused because I get up at 2 o'clock?
Oh, yeah, no, like, you know what, anybody that's in the gallery can leave, sorry, there aren't any rules about, okay, well, you came in and now the door is locked, so please feel free that those that
We
are,
appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
yeah, nobody has to stay, they can leave after they've heard their part, or,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you for coming. Okay, moving on to item 11, Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism. So I believe we are gonna get to meet the new executive director, Peter.
Yes.
Peter, I'm gonna get you some water.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to let me speak to you today.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna read a little preamble that I have about you.
Okay.
You're representing the Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism. NKLT has requested an audience with council to deliver a presentation on their 5-year strategic business plan, recently submitted to Destination BC, which includes their application to allow NKLT to continue to be eligible for the municipal and regional district tax for the next 5 years. And so I'm sure you'll be able to explain that to the listening audience as well.
Yeah. I thought I would kind of start from the beginning. I sense sometimes since I've taken over in this position that sometimes people, maybe don't have an entirely understanding of what Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism is and what we do. So I've just got a few slides here. So Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism is a not-for-profit destination marketing organization. We cover the areas of Nelson, Caslow, and the East Shore. And basically, yes, we are the eligible entity to collect the MRDT tax in our region. We're going to slide to the next
Arrow?
just arrow. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So when I took over with the position here, as Mayor Morrison had mentioned, every 5 years we do need to reapply to collect the MRDT tax. And so when I took over in the position, I had been going through kind of our 5-year strategics from years previous, and the mission and vision statements were very. They kind of remained the same over the last sort of 10 years at least, and they were always very marketing driven, if you will, and marketing centric. Now, at a 2% MRDT tax, that is really all that we can do with the money, is marketing. So we'll get into a little bit more of that, but I really wanted to work with our members and stakeholders to really redefine what our mission and vision is. And so, I'll just go over it quickly, but Nelson's Kootenay Lake, our vision is to be globally renowned as a vibrant, welcoming, year-round mountain and cultural destination known for its exceptional experiences, authenticity, and diverse, unique communities. Our mission is to attract value-aligned travelers based on data-informed destination management strategies and effective marketing initiatives intended to increase visitation and length of stay, which increases stakeholder revenues and contributes to the region's economic sustainability. So the two main places that Nelson Kootenay Lake, our two main sources of funding that we use for marketing the region are the MRDT tax, which is currently at 2%, which is paid for when people come in, and if you are familiar with this, please forgive me, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. But when you check into any of the accommodators in our region, there is a 2% tax that's levied. And so that comes back to Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism, and we use that to market the region. The other source of funding that we get is from Destination British Columbia, and so they do funding matches with us. So when we apply for funding to support our marketing initiatives, they basically decide whether or not they'll help us out in that regard or not. So as you can see here, except for COVID, our MRDT, we've been experiencing growth sort of year after year. And so when I took over the position, sort of our first item of business was to check in with all of our accommodators and our members to see if there was any interest in moving from a 2% tax. The majority of the DMOs, other DMOs in our area and this area of the province are already at a 3% MRDT. So my question sort of was, if staying at 2% is a strategic plan, what is that strategy? Why do we want to do that while so many of our I don't want to say competitors, but the DMOs in our region have moved to a 3%. So there was a lot of feedback. Some people just don't feel comfortable with charging any more tax. They feel that people are taxed enough as it is. But what I really sensed when I was approaching people was that I really sensed people's trepidation was the fact that they didn't know where the money would be spent. And so with that realization, it was a very quick turnaround from when I took the position in April to get a 5-year strategic plan in about 5.5 months later. And also, I didn't feel that it was my position at that time to influence anyone's decision. I felt that being so short in the position, my job was to listen to people and to get their feedback and to allow them to make the decision. So we have applied and put our application in at a 2%. But what I've said to what I've said to all of our stakeholders and members is that what I will do now is begin to do something similar to what Tourism Revelstoke did. I don't know if I'll be able to get a grant for it, but what Tourism Revelstoke did was when they were deciding to move from a 2% to a 3%, they actually got a grant to do a whole bunch of research and to understand where that extra 1% could go. And then once that was presented to the members, it was kind of like a no-brainer. And so my plan and how I've left that, and this is sort of looking forward, is that I've ascertained that we can reapply at any time. We do not need to wait for that entire 5-year to put in another application. So what I will be doing in the coming months and trying to keep it within sort of the year is speaking with the other DMOs, trying to get an idea for what it is they're doing with the extra 1%, how that's going, keeping open conversation with the city and council and understanding what some of the city's needs are and some of the challenges they're facing, and if there's ways that if we're able to collect the extra percent, and then so that's the thing with the extra 1%, you can do things outside of marketing. So there is some destination stewardship that can be done. One of our greatest issues in the region obviously is transportation. And so I'm looking into if there are ways that we could spend some of that extra money on transportation, shuttle services, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, moving forward, that's the plan, is to really begin to compile ideas and information as to what we might be able to do if we decided to go ahead and make that shift. But in submitting this proposal and this application, one of the things that we need to do is show engagement with the city, and in many cases, well, not just the city, but RDCK, Caslo as well too. So it's important that we engage with all of the different the local communities and just make sure that people have access to the 5-year strategic and are able to provide input. So that's kind of when Kaylee was speaking, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about from Nelson Kootenay Lake and ways that we could collaborate and stuff like that. But I think tonight's discussion was really intended just to present that forward and then ask for any feedback or input from council.
Any questions? Councillor Woodward, then Councillor
I'll go
Lockenberg,
first,
then Councillor Payne.
Okay. Go ahead, I'll go after Councillor Payne.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed reading your presentation. It was something that I sort of knew around the edges, but as you say, hadn't really done a deep dive in. So I got lots from the history of 2009 you becoming the eligible entity to collect the MRDT. So when I'm looking at your chart, so in 2023, for example, if the organization had collected 3% instead of the 2%, it would have been over $1 million.
Yes, correct.
Which would have been seems to me a healthy marketing, and then you would have an additional 300 plus to do, as you say, this destination stewardship. So you're talking transportation, obviously a key need in our area. Would housing fit under that? Like I'm finding
it can, yes, you can put a portion of the 1%, the extra 1% toward what is deemed affordable housing. Yes, so that's one of them. Now, I should be really careful though when I say that's what I'm doing now is ascertaining where we can actually spend that extra 1%. So I really need to make sure that transportation is one of them. I know for certain that affordable housing is, and so that's something that one of the things that's an interesting discussion that we can have moving forward. I think one of the things that makes it a challenge for our region is because we're so large, so it's not like, it's golden and okay, we're going to put 1% to affordable housing and there's a spot here where we're going to build, we do garner the MRDT from all of our regions. So that would be something that, but yes, the answer is yes, that we can definitely work toward a plan to, and it may be something where it's saved for 5 years and put it in the GIC or whatever, and then every 5 years there is an expenditure, and perhaps that's something that we could actually do with the city and contribute to. Again, it's at this stage of the game, it's really now starting to figure out what it is we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, supplemental if I may.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's, my daughter's looking for a roommate right now, and so I'm noticing there are a lot of, I would say, youth coming in to work the seasonal jobs in our
Yes.
community, all looking for places to live.
Yes.
So that's one component of it. To keep our healthy tourist industry going,
bet.
we need those individuals in addition, without, pushing out the residents that are still here and hard pressed with a 0% vacancy rate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very interested in that opportunity. Is that something that Revelstoke did when they established their housing?
Yes,
Society?
Revelstoke used.
I can check that out.
Yeah,
You don't need to,
yeah.
I don't need to go into details
they're
here.
doing a lot of good stuff.
They're doing
and
a lot of
I
good
really
stuff.
do lean on them for advice at times because they've really done a good job in Revelstoke, and they're, they're obviously getting a lot of visitation, so it kind of, goes like that. But I definitely look toward them for insight, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think I met who does a lot of their housing and their marketing when I was at a housing conference last year in
Megan
Vancouver.
Tabor, perhaps. I know she's the
No.
executive director. That's one interesting
yeah.
thing. There's two of us at NKLT. Everyone else has like 5 employees. Yeah.
So that's, thank you.
So Councillor Woodward, then Councillor Lockberg, then Councillor Page, and then Councillor Panero.
Wow, okay. Thank you, Mayor. My question to you is, obviously, climate change is having a major impact on tourist seasons.
Yes.
And shifting those tourist seasons and changing the tourist seasons. So I'm wondering, in your calculations and your visions and developments for the future, I mean, do you see kind of shoulder season, advertising shoulder seasons as an option? Traditionally we've always been kind of summer, winter, but as you know, that's changing quickly. So I'm just wondering, what do you see as we go 5 or 10 years down the road? What does tourism look like in Nelson if, let's say, snow becomes challenging and summers become smoky?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, definitely shoulder seasons are becoming, that's the hot topic right now. Generally speaking, we don't struggle at all in the summer or the winter. Now, if any of you are coming to the AGM tomorrow, we are working on some crisis management stuff with the city. I'm really actually trying to control our own narrative when it comes to, in particular, summer season. It's been our experience that sort of blanket information, and not marketing, but sort of blanket statements that come often from the province is that British Columbia is a place that's always on fire, and that it's not a good place to visit. And so we're looking into placing more webcams in our region so that when people, I have people calling me all the time at the office saying, is it smoky in Nelson? And it's a very, it's a difficult question because, you look at, okay, it's not now, but it could be in a couple of, and so what we're going to do for our region and work with our partners here is that we're going to install webcams throughout our catchment area so that people can see for themselves,
right.
Because if we all know, I think there were 5 or 6 smoky days this summer in Nelson.
It was
but yet, if you read the papers and stuff, it was people, how are the fires in Jasper affecting you? And it's just like, you have to explain to them, well, that's another province away and about 12 hours away, right? So I'm trying to combat that type of it's not misinformation, but it's blanket information. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do so that if people are planning to come and visit here and they're coming in 10 days or something, every morning they're on the webcam. Oh, look at there. Oh, look at there. And then they feel more confident to visit because it's not a big question mark as to whether or not the area is smoky or not. And then also the way that it's like, for summer, history shows that things are warming in time, but I'm also trying to work harder with, say, a literary festival in August, so that if it is a little bit smoky or a bit hot, a lot of what's taking place is indoors. So it's not such a big deal if it's going to be, because really smoke is not great at all, but neither is really hot as well either, for a lot of people. So it's like, hey, if it's the summer, don't really worry too much about the weather as much, because we have activities and things going on that are inside. We have cafes with air conditioning and that kind of stuff. So
You're adapting.
Yeah, we're adapting. Yeah, we're adapting and really doing our best to adapt and to express that to people and help them understand that we're still a great place to visit. Yeah.
Just a supplemental, Mayor?
Sure.
I do want to say that, of course, this place is so deep in my heart. I've lived here most of my life. And I just, it's, people come here and are amazed. I'm amazed crossing that bridge, looking over at downtown Nelson the last few days. Have just been spectacular.
I agree.
So I think it's just, tourism is fickle because people have money to spend and they're wanting to spend it the best way they can. I think that flexibility and that adaptability is critical in the tourism sector here. And I thank you for thinking about those changes.
I appreciate it. If I could even add quickly, in shoulder season, the other thing that I'm trying to do as well is that in the past, Destination BC has kind of steered us in the direction of marketing to, say, the adventurer or the cultural explorer and those types of things, and that's great, and I do understand that it's not like you're trying to pick one of those out of the crew. You are trying to market to that sort of sector, if you will. But the other thing that I've in having discussions with a lot of the accommodators and business owners in the area is really trying to, in particular in those shoulder season, is bring more tournaments and events, that really do put heads in beds, so it's not. So, it's because, Kamloops, that's what they hang their hat on, right? They're the tournament capital of British Columbia. And the more events that we can bring in, so that's whether that's a literary event that happens in the shoulder season, or, we're supporting the disc golf tournament and really trying to turn that into a world-class, this to be a world-class destination for disc golf. Not even just isolating and wanting to work on those shoulder seasons, but aggressively and bring in different types of tourism and not overlook group tourism.
Thank you.
Councillor Lockenberg.
Thanks for this presentation, Peter. Question, and I know you inherited the strategic plan, so no problem if you don't have a direct answer to this, but you reference as your number one principle the ABC, always bettering communities, and in that section of your guiding principles, you talk about everything you do is to benefit community or to benefit the community. How do you define benefit?
Well, I think we would look at initiatives that, someone brings an idea or we have a marketing idea, like will this benefit the community? And so, like, is it a marketing strategy that will benefit the community? And if so, then it's something that we would explore. If someone brought together an idea where it's, I guess I'm isolating bike packing for a reason. And it's just like, that this group has been approaching me to support bike packing. But the reality of bike packing is you take your bike and you go elsewhere. And so does that really benefit our community? If someone is out not spending time in in restaurants and or staying in accommodations and not being in our communities, does that benefit? And so I'm not even saying that it doesn't, but that's the lens that I would look through. It's like how much effort am I going to put into this bike packing initiative, because how much benefit will it have for any of our communities? Whereas if someone brings to me, a project proposal that is going to bring people to the area to play a specific event or a tournament or something. So we're just always trying to, like, that's why ABC is it's the first things. It's like, will this, and even if you can't ascertain it, if you don't know for certain, then it may get to the second stage. But if you look at this and you're like, this idea, I don't see at all how this would benefit any of our stakeholders or this community at all, then we would move on to the next item, I guess, does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I hear you using benefit a lot, but I'm going to press you on this a little bit more, because what I asked about was, how do you define benefit? Like, what does it mean? And it sounds like you've got an implied a sort of sense of it. So you're working from a sense of what benefit means. But if I pulled back a few layers there, my guess is it's pretty much it's economic, and it's maybe stakeholder focused. So that's what I'm looking for, is a clear, unambiguous definition of community benefit.
I think I would have to say, though, it would be at a case-by-case situation. I mean, often it is economic benefit. I mean, you know, that is our goal, is to bring more economic stimulus to the region, right? It's to put heads in beds, to bring, you know, and to garner more of the tax. I mean, we got grants for bear bins in the region, you know. That doesn't really do anything for us economically, but it benefits our region. So yes, we're going to go for that grant, you know. So that's one, you know. It's like, do we go for this grant? I mean, do we take the time and effort to apply for this grant for something that actually doesn't bring us any money? Well, yes, we do, because it benefits the community. So that's, again, so okay, all right, we're going to try and do that. So it doesn't, I guess, necessarily have to be economic, but I mean, in terms of bike packing, if someone wants me to help promote bike packing and bike packing in the region, it has to benefit the region in some way. And so if I don't see any benefit of them, as I say, checking into hotels or spending time in there, like, it's literally, you're sending people out of the region, well, that doesn't really seem to benefit the region to me as much. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't have that discussion further with that group, but with all of the things that come across my desk, I have to see some real benefit, whether it be economic or destination stewardship, and those are the types of things that benefit the community. So I hope I'm not trying to jump around that question, but it's like, anytime someone comes with a proposal, we have to think, okay, well, does this do anything, or are you just trying to push your own mandate and try and get me to help you further that mandate?
So
Peter,
if I may,
Rick has a follow-up, and then we'll move on to
yeah,
Councillor Page.
and I don't want to belabor this,
Just,
but
yeah.
so it's a
I'm
suggestion.
just cautious of time, too, because
For sure.
usually we do this presentation for half an hour. So if you, Peter, you're very enthusiastic, but if maybe you can make your answers also shorter, and if council questions short as well.
So what I'm going to suggest then, for everybody's benefit, is to be very clear in terms of a matrix, to be like, here is how, when I'm evaluating this initiative, I'm not going to just wing the benefit question.
Right.
It's so central.
Right.
And the more I hear you talk about it, it's the most important thing, really. So it will be helpful to everybody if we know what that means.
Okay.
Because an initiative like the bear bins might come along, and you could go literally down the list and say, well, it's good if there's a benefit to the broader community in terms of there's clearly a need for and a desire for more bear protection. So check. There's an economic benefit because people like to come to an area that's, you know, socially or environmentally conscious. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you go down the list. If you're not clear with us, then in general, it's really hard to understand why this initiative has been supported as opposed to, say, that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Cool.
Councillor Page.
Thanks. Yeah, I really agree with what Rick is saying there around defining the benefit. I had a few questions, specifically around the affordable housing part of it. I'm noticing from the graph you provided earlier, you guys have seen an increase of, on average, about 15% every year with the existing 2%. That's predominantly from a growth in revenue, from a growth in sales of accommodations during that time versus the 2%. Does that include the online accommodation platform revenue that's coming in?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's both pieces. Can you speak a little bit quickly just to the eligible requirement to be a member of Kootenay Lake? Is it only accommodators and the providers of services, or?
No, basically, most businesses, I believe, I should double check that, I don't want to lead you the wrong, but it is, there's no fee that's required. I believe the only requirement is to have a link back to our site on your site and our logo stating that you're a member of Kootenay Lake Tourism.
Okay, and then we had obviously the presentation a little bit earlier from the Arts, the West Kootenay Arts Council. Yeah. And it makes me also wonder, and maybe you probably don't have the history, but have you had conversations about representation on the board from the workforce? Not just the people leading the organizations, but the people on the ground? Is there anyone, is there anywhere in there that you're looking for representation beyond just the people who swipe the card?
Oh, yes, yes. So our board it's required to have, certain segments of our community's population, if you will. So there needs to be someone from arts, there needs to be summer representation, the winter representation, there needs to be a Balfour representative, there needs to be a Castle representative. And those don't necessarily, they do need to be members of Nelson Kootenay Lake. So, we're trying to get Sydney Black to be on the board to represent the arts. So we, our bylaws require certain factions of the community sit on the board.
Right, but those are, yes, so you've crafted those within your own bylaws,
Yes.
which are obviously subject to change from your own discussions, but I'm just wondering about that representation. Just wondering, I know I've heard from other local governments through the province, through our own networking, that some communities have taken the whole 3% and directed it towards affordable housing. So I'm wondering where this 2% expectation for marketing specifically is coming from versus how that doesn't, I'm just listening within the conversation that there's a presumption that the 1% at the end of the 2% is what you spend on affordable housing versus using the budget and the increase in the 15% increase to do research, to get clear visions on what kind of affordable housing projects could be done, to do stakeholder engagement with people beyond business owners.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I guess to my knowledge, there was.
Yeah, there's a piece on the end of your presentation
Yeah,
there
because,
that says that, and I challenge the correctness of that statement on its face.
Yeah, so and I appreciate that. So I wonder maybe if I could actually follow up with clarity on that. That certainly when you go to 3%, the extra 1%, I believe all of that can go to affordable housing.
But
I don't want to speak incorrectly and provide the wrong information, but to my knowledge, since I've held the position, at 2%, there is not a lot we can do other than marketing with that money. There is really no infrastructure that can take place. I want to make sure that I'm not incorrect on that, but I know that is the reason why some people do collect the extra 1%, so that it gives them the freedom to use that money. I'm thinking maybe at the 2% that OAP can be used, but not MRDT. But I would.
There's some mechanics there. You believe, yeah.
Yeah, and I do recall that when I had stated this Destination BC. So I thought this was the correct statement, but I should double check that. And if it's okay, I would like to follow up with you tomorrow.
So Peter, we'd like to have that information, and tomorrow you're having the AGM is being hosted here in Nelson, so hopefully amongst your colleagues in attendance there, you can get some clarity around the 2% and because I've also heard it, and we've all heard it, that it seems that some people are using 3%, and I just want to speak for a moment about, because I own a bed and breakfast, there's a couple of things here, and I don't know where the information, I don't know if there's our staff, but just for clarity, in the background document here that we have in front of us, it says that Nelson Kootenay Lake funding comes from the 2% tax collected by all hotels within the region that have 4 bedrooms or more. I have a 2-bedroom bed and breakfast, and ever since the government has changed regulations, I pay 2% MRDT. So 4 bedrooms, there is no, like, I could have 1 bedroom and I'd be paying MRDT.
I believe you pay OAP, not MRDT.
Trust me, I've got the tax forms on my desk. I always pay MRDT, 2% on every stay at my bed and breakfast. So I don't even know what OAP is, because I've got the tax forms on my desk. Every month I submit my costs. So just in terms of some clarity there, because I think that statement that's in our background is incorrect. And just to go back to somebody that asked a question about how do you belong to Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism, it has changed over time. When I first started in the business 20 years ago, and then when Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism first started, when they started about maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago, you joined. So before I was paying the MRDT, because I wanted to be able to advertise on their site or have a connection, I paid a yearly fee to belong to Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism. When the MRDT came in, you no longer bought this membership, because potentially I was the $150, I was kind of given that through the MRDT circuitously back to the organization. So the funding model of the organization has changed over time as well.
Yeah, but Mary Marson, you're gonna get me into trouble, because if you have an accommodation in this town and you're paying, like, I'm absolutely certain that the only ones who are on our accommodator list that we provide to the federal government are that you have to have a minimum of 4 units. And so
I would love to quit charging people this tax, so please clarify.
Okay,
so I'm just like,
I
so you're
will.
gonna find some clarity for me, but I know that I pay PST and I pay MRDT on everybody that stays in my bed and breakfast in my personal home. This isn't a property I own outside of my home.
okay, I mean, those are 2 things I'll follow up with you tomorrow on, because that is drastically different than the process that I just went through.
Councillor Page has a number more questions.
Not too many more. So I'm driving eventually to a point there.
I know.
So I hear an openness to have discussions around the affordable housing piece. I know that Kelowna is, for instance, taking those online accommodation numbers and putting them in simply a reserve for acquiring land for the purposes of doing affordable housing to decide later. I know, having a conversation, I'm not sure if you had a chance to tune in to the Regional District Board meeting last week when the MRDT came for approval, which it got, but it was expressed by members of that board within the catchment that they were bringing forward proposals to look specifically at bringing an ask for affordable housing to your organization as well.
Okay.
So I think there's going to be shared conversations that want to happen. And exactly as I couldn't have scripted that kind of conversation that happened before, but they're reading the regulations before this, there's a lot of flexibility about what a DMO can do or determine as affordable in their intervention or support of. And so that artist community really highlights a place where, when we're trying to protect the authenticity and the diversity of our communities for the asset that is bringing everybody here in the first place, that artist community is struggling more so than I think a lot of others. And it's one of those pieces that I think we really desperately can't be losing. Mm-hmm. And so if we can be bringing in an extra $300,000, or we could be bringing in an extra 0.5% or $150,000 over the long term to support live, work, creative studio spaces that are affordable for that really critical population, I think it's something we need to, as Lautenberg was saying, have a conversation about what betters the community and what stakeholders are at the table, because point of sale where you take the tax isn't the only part of the conversation. They're not the only people that create that experience. And so how we're capturing that and then providing relief to the parts of that experience that are really struggling to keep bringing their heart and soul into it, I think is super critical. So if I'm not sure how the AGM will go tomorrow, I might be able to pop in and be there, but maybe that's something to have a conversation with the membership of making sure that's clear. We should have these conversations and be open to these conversations because I think your other partners are wanting to look to form those conversations and how you and your organization are going to be part of that solution.
Yeah, sounds good.
And I have one last thing, it's really short.
Sure.
The webcams, you should make sure they're really, really, really high quality, and they should be like a constant live stream on YouTube. You should be able to like just do that slow television thing that they do in Sweden, where it's just like a train and it's just going on for 8 hours, and people just tune into that, and just like the waves lapping off the side of Bob or something.
We've had great uptake. People, the members of the community are like, I want one at my place. I want one. So we've actually approached Destination BC to see if we can get funding for high quality webcams.
High quality.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Councilor
Thanks, Peter.
Pinero.
So yeah, hi. I was reading the presentation earlier. I also noticed that you used the word authentic 14 times. I'm wondering how you define authentic according to the Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism Board.
Well, I mean, the artists, the communities that exist within our catchment are. Well, I think it's also mentioned that it is often described as authentic, so it's not often that we're necessarily leading that narrative. It's that people often describe that our place as authentic, funky, that kind of stuff. And so we are trying to preserve that type of authenticity. So, supporting the arts, in our region and stuff, so that it doesn't become, non-authentic, where it's like, McDonald's and so we try and support, arts and culture, these things that exist in our region that, authenticity, I guess, the definition of, but it's, what we're talking about, the arts and culture that live here, that they are artists, they are living this, they haven't given up the dream, they are still living the life that we have here, this authentic place where, you don't really see, the Porsches go by where everyone's like, hey, look at me. They're more concerned with the life that they live and the lifestyle that we have here. And that is a very, it's authentic, we're living our best lives in this region, and we're, and that, I believe that in itself is authenticity, is
Could I
is
have a...
living your dream.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I mean, the reason I ask, I guess, is because the world is full of examples of sort of full throttle tourism marketing gone wrong. I mean, there's coastal cities in coastal villages in Mexico where it's easier to find a oat triple latte than it is to find a Mexican, and clearly that isn't where it's, when you state that residents and or visitor and local experiences are one and the same, that's not true there. So we just, I think, have to be very careful that what we are asking for here isn't the death of authenticity itself. I mean, I would push back kind of hard about what's good for visitors is what's good for residents. I think that can be true sometimes and in certain situations. It's not true all the time. And it's been spoken to before by other people at the table, so I won't belabor it, but we are sort of blessed with a place that it's nice. People are going to come here whether we sort of bend over backwards for them or not, in a certain sense. And I think any sort of marketing or tourist tourist promotion that we do needs to take into account the extremes that this type of thing can go to. I mean, I hate Banff. It's not authentic.
But we're not Banff. Like, I would actually.
We're not right now.
I
You're
understand where you're coming from, but I would caution that approach because, you know, I have people reaching out to us all the time saying, asking me about sustainability. Well, you know what sustainability is in Caslow? It's keeping the lights on. That's what sustainability is. So I'm not too concerned, to be quite frank with you, of over-tourism in this region because that's not the indicators that we're seeing these days. In fact, I'm more concerned that people aren't going to come here anymore if it's not a desirable place to stay. I mean, I don't believe that people will come here if we don't continue to let them know what a great place it is, because it's not, you know, it's not Banff, because Banff is on the way to Calgary, and Banff is the closest place when you leave Calgary. We're not really on the way to anywhere. So, I mean, I'm sensing that you're concerned about over-tourism and the fact that, like, it won't be authentic because everyone has their latte anymore. I kind of just want to make sure that the people that are serving lattes stay in business and are able to serve lattes. I understand where you're coming from in terms of the concern for it going too far, but that's not the feedback that I'm getting from accommodators and stuff. That's not the data that we're getting right now. The area is seeing less visitation these days, and so that's more of a concern for me right now than going the other way. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I'm not a big fan of Banff either, but we're definitely not Banff right now. I mean, I ride my bike 5 days a week. I go riding. I'm still blown away that we have these world-class trails that are all around here, and I don't see anybody on them. So, like, we're not Whistler, we're not Squamish, but we don't want to end up like, you know, one of the areas of British Columbia that have kind of, you know, subsided.
No, I think that a balance, sorry, I don't mean to go on, but a balance is key, absolutely. I mean, during COVID, I own a business downtown. I have a business across from another business downtown. We talk all the time. The person that I speak to doesn't need to go to the gym. She can totally just do push-ups and sit-ups at home. She comes to the gym because we have nice conversations and she likes me. I don't need to go to a coffee shop. I can make coffee at home, but I go to her coffee shop because I like her. So these circular economies that we can build as a community actually build community in a way that transient visitors don't. And so do we need tourism? We absolutely do. Do we need to pull out all the stops for tourism at the expense of some things that might actually benefit residents more? I just caution, and not that that's what you're doing. You do have an AGM coming up. This is not something that's my opinion. It is something that I hear a lot from people that, you know, it's not about if nobody can afford to live here. I've been to those towns in Mexico when there aren't any Mexicans that live there because they can't. Mm-hmm. You know, and that can happen here. Mm-hmm. It absolutely can. It may not be there yet, but that's why at this point, at this juncture, it's very important to be honest with ourselves about what we're doing here. And I realize that people that own hotels are not going to say they just want more people in their hotels, and that's fair enough. I think I would expect that they would say that. We also need to pay attention to things like people are saying around the table, things like housing, things like the sustainability of and the cohesion of our community. And I know that that's not exactly in your wheelhouse. Yeah, potentially, it's a little bit different, but I think we all have a broad view of what it means to live here, even when we're working in our particular silos. And so I just wanted to sound a note of caution on this, because I know it's marketing, and marketing has a certain way with words, and so maybe I'm reacting to those words a little bit, but like if you follow that to its logical conclusion, it can be quite frightening for people that are trying to afford to live here and continue to live here in community. So sorry, it's been a very long, I don't mean to pin you to the wall, but.
I see clarity on something that was said there.
Sure, Counselor Page.
Can you help me understand? So there's been like a 70% increase in the revenue in the 5-year span, and that I worked on that.
Yep.
It's a 70%.
Yep.
And I believe you. You're saying that because I know a lot of the accommodators, and I know it's hard out there. Is it more? Are there more accommodators that's driving that growth increase? Is the cost per room rising that's driving that increase? Like when we see that growth in revenue coming in from the 2% that's been static, what's driving that increase in revenue while also simultaneously
Well, I mean,
causing
from
a struggle
wearing my
on the business
tourism
side?
hat, I mean, I've only been in the position for 7 months now, but I would would say that it's effective, tourism strategies that are bringing people to the area. I mean, what happens with accommodators when they're not having as many people visiting, they'll raise their rates as well too. So, but I mean, it is, more people are coming to the area. I mean, we'll see what 2024 states, and we'll see if that's going to start heading down. But I mean,
is this an area you guys are going to dig into? Like, are we seeing our prices increasing? Therefore, that's driving more revenue, but less visitors. Like, are people charging $400 instead of $200, and now they're seeing people half as much? But
well, what's
it's
happening?
kind of a wash, or is it a bunch of Airbnbs showing up?
Well,
like,
there's that. There's the Airbnb factor. There's also for this summer, I think what people, what's happened is that, back in 2020 and 21, there was basically free money. I mean, you wanted to go somewhere, you could just go and get the money, right? But
Sure.
now when you're getting it at 7-8%, there's less people traveling. So what we've been seeing is that there hasn't really been a shift at the higher end accommodations. So basically what the Prestige has done to sort of augment the fact that they're seeing less people is they're just charging more money, and the people in that tax bracket aren't flinching at those prices because that doesn't affect them. But those that, so what I've heard is that those that have trailer, places that you can pull up your trailer, things that are more mid-level accommodators, those are seeing a drastic reduction. So it's.
So will you research in the is 2024 going to be worse than 2023, better?
I believe 2024 will be down from 2023, yes.
Okay, and then your research as you dig into this role will try to tease out more of
Exactly.
what's driving out that general visitation.
Yeah, many people, you talk to many accommodators, they'll tell you it's because it's Airbnb, right? A lot of people are calling me saying, why are there less people coming? So I have to remind them that, when people have their mortgage renewal in November and they're thinking about traveling in September and they know their prices are going to go, their expenses are going to be twice as much as what they were before, they're not going to take that trip. Or if they are, they're not going to be spending as much money as they would have recently. So there's a lot of factors that are at play.
Love to see more on that in future years, for sure.
Yeah, and so and just so that we're really, so we've been working on it. Actually, I just shared it with the accommodators today. So we've created a new accommodator portal so that the accommodators can go in on a monthly basis and succinctly basically add 4 pieces of information to that accommodator list so that I can allow you guys to know, us to know what percentage we're up or down, during certain months and stuff, and then we'll use that information to, to direct our marketing. And so a lot of that we'll realize that, okay, we're down September and October, okay, we really got to go for it in marketing and these types of things. We got to get some, tournaments or something going on, but that's how we'll use that information and really try and, keep visitation up as much as we can during the season. I mean, I know Jesse was expressing some concern in that regard, but tourism is that's the hat that I wear, so that's what I try and do is just more heads in beds and that's my job, that's my job description.
Okay, great, thanks.
So Peter, I want to thank you, and I think I'll just call it there, just because of the fact that we've given you a lot more time than normally. We have another delegation here, it seems on 2 delegation nights somehow it's like we're having 4, because we just sort of feel that we have this time that we can just give. I think that we have asked a number of questions, of which we do require some information back. So we'll either have you back, or when you find that information, a written submission that we can share with all of council, so that they can see the answer to the numerous questions that we had. And of course, tomorrow I will be joining the AGM for a bit to bring some opening remarks from the City of Nelson and council. So thank you for your...
Just details on the AGM, I couldn't find it on the website.
It's...
Yeah, if you go into Kootenay Rockies, there should.
Oh, Kootenay Rockies.
Yes,
Kootenay,
Okay,
it's
I
Kootenay,
understand.
it's Kootenay Rockies, it's not,
We're
no,
hosting
it's not
it.
NLK,
We're
they're the
Okay,
hosts.
that's
We're
fine.
hosting a Kootenay
Yeah.
Rockies.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the
we
Kootenay
got
Rockies
our
AGM, so it's
That's where I couldn't
everyone,
find it.
it's everyone from the DMO for the southeast corner
Okay,
of
thank you.
the province
Got
will
it.
be in attendance.
Sonia and Mayor Morrison both have my contact information. Please, the discussion doesn't have to end here. If you ever have anything you'd want to discuss with me, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with any of you at any given time. I believe I have 2 basic responses that I'm getting back to you tomorrow on in regards to the affordable housing, and then.
Well, when you find it out during the course of the meeting, because you guys have 2 days of meetings, so I mean,
Yeah,
whenever, we don't need to have it like immediately,
Okay.
but there is a lot of confusion out there in the chatter that we have as councillors and mayors with other cities. We just need to have clarity. You don't have to don't burn down Bob trying to get this information tomorrow,
Okay.
but we would like to have clarity around it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for
Thanks,
listening
Peter.
to me. and
Thank you,
sharing.
Peter.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Of course.
Okay, and our last delegation of the evening is the Nelson Izu-Shi Friendship Society. John, I think you're doing the presentation, as he's have requested an audience with council to deliver a presentation on the highlights of the year, including the spring exchange. And John, is there anybody that you wanted to have join you, or are you just gonna be up there by yourself?
Well, I'm going to be here by myself, but when we get to questions.
You've got your whole team there, so that's great.
Okay.
Hi Bernie, hi Jim, hi Will, hi everybody back there.
So can you hear me? Is that okay?
You'll probably want to do it closer.
Closer.
Like, we can hear you, but the
Right.
internet might
Yeah, but
not.
sometimes the video like doesn't.
Yeah, okay. How's that?
That's better.
Okay. Good evening and thanks for inviting us here. My name is John Armstrong. I'm the president of the Nelson Izu-Shi Friendship Society. And there are 2 parts to our presentation, and we're going to start with I think a brief report on some of the special projects we've had over this year. And the first slide is the exchange. In the early spring, we led a multi-generational group of 17 to Japan for 2 weeks, and which included 6 days in our sister city of Izu-Shi. We had lots of rain, and there were no cherry blossoms until later. But we visited many interesting places and experienced wonderful hospitality from our homestay families. During our visit, we practiced calligraphy, we made Japanese paper, we enjoyed a great taiko drumming concert, ate wasabi ice cream, and toured their new high-tech incinerator, which was very interesting. This picture was taken at a small temple in the countryside where we had practiced meditation with a priest. And normally, every year we have a picture at the main temple in Shuzenji. But that day we were there in the midst of a terrible thunderstorm and lightning and heavy rain and wind, and so there was no picture. But this turned out to be a very lovely little almost farm in the countryside with the priest who gave us lovely oranges to eat after our meditation. So this is where we took the picture. And I can just tap where to go on.
The arrow, the right arrow.
Got it. Okay. So we've been trying to develop sister city ties in different ways. And at one of our, at the Civic Welcome, one of our teenage members presented cards that students in grade 6 in Trafalgar had written to students in Izu-Shi. So here, Izu-Shi Mayor Kikuchi on the left and other society and city officials are reading those cards. And there seems to be a renewed interest in writing to pen pals on both sides. So we're trying to develop that a little bit. And you get a little bit of a view of Izu-Shi in the background here. We also visited the fire hall. and where we met with very enthusiastic welcome. And in case you don't know, our Nelson Fire Hall has a small museum of Japanese firefighting equipment donated by Izu-Shi. So that's another connection. And we had met with them before we went. So Ian Smith, who's one of our board members who is here tonight, gave a talk while we were there on the Nelson Fire Department's role in climate change adaptation and wildfire risk mitigation, and which was well received and translated. And Margot and Elise and others got to be Japanese firefighters for a little while. But they were very, very welcoming. Our sister city friends couldn't come this year, but we're looking forward to welcoming them to Nelson next summer. And well, there's 2 in 1 here. There's an origami poster at the top there. Normally we offer cultural activities at our seasonal events, but this year we were able to offer special cultural workshops and events thanks to a grant from the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society, which Grace DeVoe, who's here, coordinated. Funding came from the provincial government as a way of recognizing its role in the internment of Japanese Canadians during World War II. So our workshops have included puppetry, sumi-e ink painting, lantern making, dancing, calligraphy, cooking, and origami. And this poster was made by one of our younger members, Kaya Fitzgerald, who also led the origami workshop. All of these were very popular, and the series is closing with a hot pot dinner and sake tasting in late November. And then the taiko drumming picture, this is the first time that we've been able to offer an event at the Capitol Theatre, and that was a taiko drumming concert featuring Yamabiko Taiko from Kelowna. And they also offered 2 workshops, one before and one after the next day after the concert. So here there's one group, and they're using real drums as well as garbage can drums, which is what the lady in the front has. And these are very good for practicing and quite a bit cheaper. We now have several people interested in forming our own taiko drumming group here, and our committee is looking at getting our next grant application ready. And we want to ask you about if there are any sewer projects coming up, because it turns out that pieces of sewer pipe also make very good taiko drums. So if you have any leftover pieces or ends or something, we'd be interested.
So new stuff, not the old stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
You got lots of 100-year-old iron, cast iron.
Well, it's got a heritage taiko drumming, maybe.
Clay won't survive the bang.
Yeah, so, okay.
No.
How can we get up here? I can't do it by hand.
Scroll on the side.
There you go.
No? Yeah, okay, that's got it. So Friendship Garden has really been in really good condition this year, thanks to our volunteers, especially our garden committee chair, Jennifer Rice, and her husband, Barry. But this spring we held a pruning seminar and workshop. Hiro Okusa, who's in green t-shirt beside me, is a Japanese garden landscaper from Vancouver who designed the garden with Jim Sawada, who's right behind me here, 20 years ago. And Hiro's often come back with his crew to help us. So we all learned more about pruning. The garden got a really refreshing trimming for spring that day. On the west side of the park, we've been following up on an earlier visit by disability consultant Tanel Bolt that Joy Barrett had arranged. And Tanel was unable to get her wheelchair up to the new lookout on her own, and she recommended we consider a new, appropriately graded and surfaced pathway. So last year, we laid out and built a base between the garden and the parking lot. And this summer, Bernie Zimmer, who's also here tonight, and our volunteers, with help from the city, completed this mobility accessible pathway using a product called Organic Lock that Tanel had suggested. It's sort of like half concrete and half gravel. But it's textured, it's easy to walk on, to wheel on, it's permeable, and it looks like it belongs there. So people now who use mobility aids can now fully enjoy this part of the park and the garden, including the waterfall, viewpoint, and the site of the electric light station. And for 5 years now, we've been working on a display signage project, and it's now complete, at least the first stage. Thanks to the willingness of many to contribute their knowledge, memories, pictures, and experiences, we've researched, written, designed, and constructed 10 signs that share stories and images of Cottonwood Creek and its surroundings. And on Sunday, we held the official opening. So this ecology sign was researched and mostly written by Eileen Delahanty Perks, with lovely wildlife photos by Alistair Fraser. His photos are accompanied by the names of the animals in English, Ktunaxa, and Sinixt in Tsul'tchen. 2 Indigenous signs created by the Ktunaxa and Sinixt communities, also with Indigenous languages, and this ecology sign have all been placed close to the creek and its still somewhat natural environment. And after 5 years, we were really happy when we actually started installing the signs about 2 weeks ago. Shashin Machine built the frames, Speed Pro printed the signs, and Glacier View Glass assembled them for us with tempered glass on both sides. And we really thank them for their great service and their patience with us, as it must have seemed like this project might never be finished. Each sign has a connected image on the back. And this picture of Cottonwood Creek was taken from Elephant Mountain and is on the back of the electric light station sign, which along with its companion, the Power of Water, tell the story of the first operating hydroelectric plant in British Columbia that opened in 1896. And I want to just go back in time a little bit here. Boyd Affleck, who was a city councilor, surveyor, and historian, wrote in 1933 that this little plant is now almost entirely obliterated and almost as entirely forgotten. And this is about 25 years after it closed, 1933. And so we're really happy here that with the help of the museum, Public Works, and the late Bert Learmonth, who created a beautiful model of the creek and the power plant, we've been able to share this story so that it will be forgotten no more. And Will, who's here tonight, and Bernie and Jim are just getting ready to install this sign. And these 2 signs, the Friendship Garden and the Sister Cities, stand near the stone lantern at the entrance to the garden. Cottonwood Falls Park was chosen as the location for the Sister City Garden, and that was completed in 2005. Close to the entrance to the Market Oval are 2 other signs placed back to back. One's titled A Changing Landscape, written mainly by Greg Nestoroff, and it shows how the land around Cottonwood Creek has changed over time. The second sign is Fish and Fishing, and it tells a similar story about the creek. There's a third sign, Lake to Lake, which is finished but won't be installed until the spring, but it will also be near the entrance pathway coming up into the park. And I'll just mention here that we will be getting a much more limited Stage 2 in the new year. We'll be creating 2 new display signs, completing 3 smaller information signs, and developing the QR links, which will provide background information, details, and help with the Indigenous and Japanese languages. And before we close then, there are many people to thank, too many for now, but especially the following. Former Mayor Deborah Kozak and current City Manager Kevin Cormack nominated us, the Friendship Society, for the Fortis BC Community Giving Award, which we received, and that got us started on the project. Succeeding mayors John Dooley, Janice Morrison, and council members, as well as city staff members, have given us great support all along. The Columbia Basin Trust has provided more financial support. The Nelson Museum, Archives, and Gallery, especially archivist J.P. Stien, who's both very knowledgeable and very generous, gave us access to so many historic photos. Janice Alpine of the Ktunaxa and Shelley Boyd of the Sinixt very graciously worked with us on telling their stories and helping to develop positive relationships among our communities. There are many other people to thank, and you can read their names when you go down to look at the signs, because they're all there. I want to thank the other members of our signage team who are here today. Will Taylor, our designer, Grace DeVoe, Jim Sawada, and Bernie Zimmer. We had our first coffee meeting in January of 2020 to think about how we would get started on this. And we continue through the pandemic, through other delays, through an exchange, many things happening, and we've now finished it. A community advisory committee gave us many suggestions, as did our Friendship Society members. Tara Cunningham brought us professional editing skills. These 10 beautiful signs tell stories of Cottonwood Creek that I think most people have never heard before. We certainly hadn't. And we feel that they add immensely to our deeper understanding of the creek, its environment, the wildlife, its histories, its people, and its value to us. We've all learned so much about our community through this project, and I know everyone here will agree with me. And we hope our citizens and our visitors will also enjoy these signs and learn from these stories. So thank you.
I don't think we usually clap, but
That was slap-worthy.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
The work.
So, councillors, do you have any questions? I was able to go, and Councillor Payne was in attendance on Sunday during the unveiling. They had them all hidden underneath orange bags, and then you got to go and visit them and see them. So it was we got that little moment, just like always happens in Nelson when there's that special occasion and there's that need for Mr. Weather to stay aside. And I didn't even have the lucky umbrella that day.
Absolutely, yeah.
We got some beautiful sunshine, so all of those lovely colored leaves in the background, there's a little bit of sun that came through to shine some light on this very important project that has been ongoing and continues to beautify Cottonwood Falls in that area. I think that we need to be very thankful to John, the people in the back, all the people that aren't here for their dedication to maintaining this park. And hopefully going forward, it'll still be a great little hidden gem in Nelson that people will continue to enjoy for years and years to come. So thank you again, John. Thank you for taking it on, sort of reviving this committee, which I really thought at one point a number of years ago that this sister city relationship was on some shaky ground, but you've really, you've proven me wrong for sure. And I see it growing stronger all the time. When I see, particularly your gardeners there, that picture that you had, some young people, I think that's really important, is that people need to realize that they can volunteer to become part of this group and to learn these skills, because that's what it takes to keep it going, that we're going to have to get some younger people out there and learning how to maintain the gardens and put some sweat equity into this work going forward. So thank you again, John.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to mention something that I did hear on Sunday, and they've kept the signage in the, what I would call the front, more open part of the park, and haven't put any back further in what I practically think of as a sacred space, where it's so beautifully landscaped and the water is coming down, and you hear that sound and really can get lost in contemplation there. So I think it was just a wonderful decision to sort of separate those two. So thank you very much for the thoughtfulness of that choice.
You're welcome, and that's what we wanted to do too, just leave the garden in that part of the park, the waterfall, as it is. Yeah.
Very nicely done.
Councilor Ward.
I have a long history with this park because of my 7 years of running the Cottonwood Market down there, and I kind of see it actually not as a park but as a work of art. It is, the whole thing is from when I started in 2012 and what you've all done. I mean, you had already worked quite a bit when I was working at the markets there, but the last decade, it's just transformed into this magical zone.
Yeah.
So I just, I mean, it has been this collaboration between the city and your group, and then lots of volunteers, but it is just a magical piece, starting from like the parking lot and the murals and moving into this fantastic place. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Councillor Tate.
I know how long these projects take, and I'm so grateful for how much time you folks have put into this and looking to the future and the next 15 and 20 and 30 years, and knowing that we recently spoke with some folks who are looking at rehabilitating the creek farther down for salmon. And I know that there is complexity with who owns what land along the creek, and which parts are for flooding and which parts are for fish and which parts are for contemplation. But man, if we can envision that in 50 years as a pathway from this beautiful space to where it meets the lake, and just start to think about which kind of partnerships and what kind of planning we're going to need to get there, because it takes a long time. And I'm so grateful that we have this spot, and then even going in the other direction toward the lake itself. It's a really incredible community asset. And thank you.
Thank you. I just like to ask my colleagues here if they'd like to say anything here. I think Bernie might have a comment, a reply to you there.
Oh, Bernie always has a reply to me.
Our long-term vision of the creek?
Well,
Bernie, I do need you to come up and join John, just because we can hear you, but somebody will phone us tomorrow and say, we didn't hear what that gentleman had to say.
Yeah, his has got on too.
This one's on. Yeah, well, I have to say, you said about a decade ago, really it was 7 years ago, maybe a little bit more, that we kind of had a bit of a revival with our group.
Yes.
And Jim Sawada, who's been one of the founding members, said, you know, we really wanted to put a Japanese-style gate on the west side of the bridge. And we did that, and it was a fabulous thing getting that gate there, but the moment we had that gate built, we looked at the west side, and it was shabby. It was absolutely horrible. And we said, we got this nice gate, but this is a big mess. And so we approached the city, and thank you to the council members and mayor at the time, that they said, yeah, go ahead. And so little by little, we, one grant after another, year after year, we would just progress a little bit at a time. And so this year is a real culmination of a lot of that. But as you were talking about a pathway to the park, for now, a few years, John and I have kind of worked with the thinking of the active transportation. We always, whenever we applied for a grant, it's the active transportation. But one of our visions is where the new parking lot is there, that it would carry on. We'd have a path carrying on to end, well, to connect up with that very old bridge where the homeless people have their encampment there now. But, with vision, we can see a path that would go along there and come to downtown, and you're walking along the creek the whole time. Now, there's some logistics, of course, that we have to get over, the highway, the Ford dealership, but I think I see it as a possibility, and as we've kind of worked year after year, biting off a little chunk at a time, that vision just gets a little bit closer each year. And realistically, that's, in a sense, it's outside of the park. It's outside of our scope. But we're going to be pushing for that vision.
Mayor?
Councillor Page.
I appreciate the commentary and share the vision of that Councillor Tate has talked to and you've spoken to. I know we are looking at eventually, and this is a little bit to staff and a little bit to you guys, but we're looking at replacing that bridge down there at Public Works. And I think it would be wonderful if we could consider that in some sense, is an extension or isolated pocket of a future cohesive or comprehensive Cottonwood Park along the creek. And so maybe there's design elements potentially in how that bridge is designed that speaks to the red bridge that's further up at the falls, right? Maybe there's pieces around walkways that go into the rehabilitated salmon spawning area that could really elevate and provide opportunity and have a tie-in from a stylistic component. And maybe there's some volunteerism that can be developed and incorporated into what the Izu-Shi Society does, because you've got a lot of young people trying to do environmental restoration work, trying to rehabilitate an industrial area, and maybe that's adds to some long-term sustainability. But it could start as simply as just painting the new bridge red and thinking about how it ties together along the whole waterway.
Yeah.
Can I just add?
Thank you.
You know, echo all the words everybody else said around the work and the partnership that's resulted in this amazing space. And it's certainly one of my favorite space. It probably is my favorite space in Nelson. You know, the city has done a lot of long-term planning. The Railtown SNAP does have a vision for that that creek corridor, as does the downtown waterfront plan, and working in conjunction with others, including the Izu-Shi Friendship Society, and how we actually make that happen. We have already spent 20 years trying to create that corridor, and that planning work has been done. So there is a vision. It's it's probably 10 years old now and might be worthwhile revisiting again. So just a reminder, councils in the past have certainly supported good long-term planning and visions of how our community develops, and we have, it's important for people to recognize the planning work that has been done and make sure that you're familiar with that. We certainly share that with the Izu-Shi Friendship Society, and they've always come on board of how we make that vision happen and make it happen. So my grateful thanks to all of you, and Jimmy back there. I remember when you're building that gate at that entrance, and here's Jimmy up on the ladder installing things, and so that passion and the new folks on board. But again, just a reminder, we do have some really good planning and vision around this, and we've been working with CP for ever since I've been here on how we try to chip away at that. And I think your comments, it is chipping away at it. And, we chip away at a piece at a time, and like you said, 7 years, just that continue chipping away, and we create magic.
Yeah, just one more thing that I'd like to say is that I really would like to thank all of the community businesses that have supported us. There's many of them that, we're doing this work down at the park, and we'll give it to you at cost, or we'll just donate this to you, or, very, very generous, those businesses. And so, really a huge thank you to them.
Made a generational asset. It'll go way beyond all of us, so.
And be full of fish.
Someday.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, John.
So that brings us actually to the end of part one of our presentation. And
now we'd like to ask you for.
Yeah, while our members, we try to do a lot to promote the Nelson's friendship with Izu-Shi, but until now, there actually haven't been any sort of physical places, pictures, images to tell people in Nelson about the sister city. So now we have a sign, which you can see in the slideshow here, entitled Sister Cities, which people can look at and they can read about our sister city. And we have not one of these, but two. And we'd like to make a presentation now to the city of Nelson.
Okay.
Oh.
may, is that okay?
Okay, of course.
Yes.
Oh, that's what that brown paper rock is.
Oh, I see, actually, okay, I was,
Yeah.
what are they doing?
We're taking over.
I thought we were about to get a dance number.
Yeah, I didn't know what was gonna happen.
Is the camera gonna be there? I mean, like, just be careful, like, there's this, it's like a hazard here. It's a whole hazard up here. Let me do this.
Okay.
I'll get rid of one hazard.
Move around here in front.
Yeah, in front.
Oh, yay.
Janice,
Yeah.
it's
all
a
good.
sweater or
This is a
something?
copy
You have a
of the-
sweater?
Sister City sign, which is in the park. And this one we want to present to the city of Nelson today on completion of this 5-year project, the first stage of the 5-year project.
Turn that light on right by.
And
Ooh.
and here it is.
Now we're right.
I will ask Will Taylor to come in here too. Will's our designer. When you look at these signs, you know, we've put in the text, we've put in the pictures and such. Will has made them all.
Will's the sign guy for sure.
So. Anyone else like
Here.
No, good. Stay where you were. Stay where you were, Will.
I'll get it. Yeah, yeah.
Yay.
We've known each other the last 2 days, so.
1, 2, 3, I'm just gonna make sure that we do a couple.
Okay.
And
Maybe lower it a little bit, John,
Yeah.
so we can see your face. We can see the sign. Yeah, that's better.
can you check, Kevin?
I'm sure it's
got
right.
something there?
You don't want to do a photo.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the sign in.
Take the sign.
So is the intent that this would be installed here at City Hall? Is that the
Yes.
thing? Or, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're stuck with it now. Yeah, I know.
No, I think it's a great idea in terms of it should be outside of City Hall.
Yeah.
Well, you put a wayfinding sign with it to be like, this way to Cotton
Wait, hold on. Can you
Creek
get
Park.
out of the way?
Okay.
Okay, and Kevin, you're gonna get in there too.
Okay.
We got one go at this.
We're in time lapse.
Somewhere along the line, somebody will have that.
There we go.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Great.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
We just left it like this, and once you decide where you'd like to put it, then if you'd like any help in terms of framing it or mounting it, or, you know, we have retired volunteers and such here, maybe, but you have people who.
We have a union.
And this sign is very beautiful too, like just, I realize that you're showing that, but for that camera, that your logo is such a lovely logo. That, because now
I
the
think we need the whole to see.
Yes, that's
See
right.
it.
Yeah, I think we need everybody in.
Yeah,
Can
come on,
we get
Jim, come on, you guys, like, let's get a whole bunch of the volunteers in.
Ian
Maybe
and,
just
yeah.
move- Just step a little bit forward there, John, with that, and let's get everybody in.
I'll do it. Kevin, you've been a part of this.
Yeah, well, see, I can put my head in here between you guys.
Okay,
Jim?
one second. I just can't take it anymore. Come forward. Come forward. Taller in the back. Jan's come forward. Here we go. Kevin in the middle. There we go. Yeah.
Are you a teacher?
Yeah. Come a little bit forward here, please. Thank you. And Kevin, there we go. There we go. That's it. That's the one.
Okay, looking here, 1, 2, 3, that back, wow, that's professional.
There we go. That's what we need.
All right.
There we go. Thank you for
You're
coordinating.
welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, sure.
Yes. So you were there from the very beginning, weren't you?
Yes, I've been around for some years.
Right?
That's how it is.
Well, I'm also thinking that it could be that we
Real
set it in
fruit.
frame like the frames that you have down at Park, and we actually have it
You're welcome.
outside, so we'll
Yeah,
take a look,
we can do that.
yeah, and see where it's the most, the best for it to be.
Thank you so
Because, you know,
much.
like people come by and say, we're not open all the time, so we don't really want to have it inside. You're welcome. If you come by on Saturday and Sunday and you're taking a picture of a heart outside, you might see that and then go, try to go to the falls, right? So, yeah. Anyways, Bernie, I can see you been pulling up too many weeds there, buddy.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Bye, John. Good to see you. So nice, yeah.
You've got a 9 o'clock meeting?
Nice job, guys.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the end of the presentation.
Thank
No
you so
part
much.
three.
Have a good one.
So,
Yeah.
thank you all very much, and
We've still got quorum, so we're good.
and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I know how much he works.
Yes.
We've had, as Will said the other day, we've had 35 or even 40 versions of each of these signs over 5 years to get to what we have now.
It's amazing.
Please
Unbelievable.
enjoy them. And the colored leaves are still there.
Very
The
beautiful.
signs will be there for longer, but you might as well go when the weather's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, now we are going to continue with Q3. Mr. Jury,
Thought we were done.
We're not quite.
Q3
I don't know
capital.
why I'm so tired
Okay,
tonight.
Go.
so just for the record, Councillor Lockenberg has to leave.
We gotta get back to the budget.
He's obviously talking to somebody in Europe or something.
What's left? What do we
We've
got
got
left here?
Q3.
Q3.
We
Is there
have
anything
manager
else?
reports and council reports.
We also have the special too.
And we have a special because we have to adopt the PTE.
Okay, I can't vote for that, so, but. I can't vote on that. Remember,
He has to recuse himself? Yeah.
So when we get,
I'm pretty sure I have a
no,
comment.
I realize because you work for one of the
Because I work for one of
PTEs.
the- yes.
Yeah, so that's fine. So when we
Okay.
get to that point, you can leave, we'll still have quorum.
Okay.
That's the key here, is that
Do you-
quorum was a bit of a risk, I know,
You're right.
during this meeting, when we met about the PTEs. But we'll be fine with, we'll still have
Yes.
5.
Okay.
So, okay, Q3.
Yeah, okay, I think we
Capital.
were, sorry, I'm not even gonna really bother with the spreadsheet or the presentation piece. There's no great pictures or anything. We're substantially sort of through the capital piece, but maybe between myself and General Manager Johnson here, we can kind of pick up some of the projects that are currently underway and just give you a status update on those. We spoke about, or the city manager spoke about the civic roof. I think that's where we left off. You know, 5th floor hallway, we talked about that at the Q2. No real changes there. It's substantially complete. We have our Elections BC tenants in there, and when they've transitioned out, I think there's some finishing touches kind of be done up there. But it looks really great. City Hall elevators is still in that procurement process stage, so no kind of updates to provide yet on that. Public Works expansion, so this is to provide some additional office space for Nelson Hydro and for transit. So we did award the RFP for that. So just kind of working through that kind of contract piece. This, like I say, this will provide that additional space for transit and hydro, so they'll be funding that through the, you know, annual lease payments that they pay now that they have expanded space. So that's kind of how we'll recoup that initial investment to kind of build back up the reserve for investing in that piece up front.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this after our workshop last week with our water gurus, and I had a curiosity about the SIP relining being capital, right? It's capital projects, but it does seem like it's kind of ongoing forever. That's a thing that we do for repairs and maintenance, and I was curious if there's like a benefit to having it as capital, or if, could it ever make sense to make it operating, and if so, would there be a benefit to making it operating? Just curious on the nuts and bolts of that decision.
Yeah, I mean, if I put my accounting brain on for a minute.
Yeah.
Well, first
Good
of all,
idea.
we don't do it every year.
Right.
So
Oh,
it's
okay.
kind of lumpy. We did it this
okay.
year. We probably won't do it again for quite a number of years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it does extend the useful life of the asset over many future years. So it does have a more of a benefit as opposed to just in the current year, right? It gives us longer useful life of the asset down
Yeah.
the road. So it is a capital. It does add value to the and length of use and you know, that type of thing. So
Okay.
So it's sort of like putting a new roof on your house? Is that
yeah,
what-
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and for clarity, you know, we rely on a pipe and it lasts another 30, 40 years, right? So it's, as opposed to replacing it, with a new pipe. We basically,
Make a pipe.
we make a new pipe.
Yeah.
Basically, so we're not relining the same pipe. It's every program we do, we're relining new,
Different area.
different areas.
But our sidewalks, I forget, are sidewalks capital or are sidewalks operating? Like, because we fix sidewalks all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
depends again.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, roads is a great example. So yes,
Okay.
so we have a capital budget for road replacement. You pull up a road, stick a new road in.
Yeah.
That's capital. But we also have a budget for just patching and repairs and that type of thing, which isn't, really adding too much extra life to it. So we just, one's operating and one's capital. Yeah.
Okay, but for SIPs, the SIP
Yes.
relining is more like a tear up, only it's not a full tear up.
Yeah.
It's a medium tear up.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay,
And-
thank you.
At that last meeting, council had also been curious about how much we had relined, and we're right around that 25% mark of the city mains, wastewater mains that we've relined. Was the number that came back, so.
How many do we need to do? Do we need to do 100% or 50% of them new enough that they don't require relining?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that ratio
Okay.
is. I mean, really what, the objective to start was A, to get more life out of the pipe, and also B, then reduce the inflow and infiltration, so the I&I of the water coming into the pipe.
Yep.
So kind of identified those biggest needs, and every year we go through, or not every year, but frequently we'll go through and prior to a SIP program, and the years leading up to it, whenever we have an issue, we'll video the pipe. So we send a video down there, have a look, see if there's bellies, see what's causing the issue. Is there a joint? Would it be a candidate for relining? And then those all go in a bank so that we can get some amount of savings just by having, getting a company out here for just a few jobs is not cost effective, right? So there's that scale that we look to, and so that's why they're not every year. We don't, if we lived in a bigger city, it would be easier because then you could get a crew in, but.
Thank you.
So then, like, you're not gonna get more than 2 relinings out of a pipe before you've lost the ability for it, and so are we just waiting for the road to get torn up through its own life cycle to then replace the pipe?
Can we reline more than once?
Yeah, I don't think you can reline. I've never heard of relining more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't lose a lot of capacity in there. But yeah, typically it's like, we're always looking at how to extend this infrastructure. So you get a really good extension on SIP relining, right? But then it eventually just gets to a state in which it needs to be replaced, and you're trying to line that up with the other pipes that are in there. You don't want to be, because when you're down there, you're probably going to replace the water pipe too, which is above the sanitary typically, so you kind of got to dig through it, and so you don't want to be replacing a 20 or 30 year pipe that has that much life left on it. So similar to like a good story about the repaving is how, the gyro above the bluffs, like on the one just got repaved this year, that road was getting potholed in the tire lanes, and it was getting pretty beat up. But to be able to sort of get the most life out of the other roads and not pave in advance and actually get a long shot there, we did a bunch of patchwork that bought us another 5 years on that stretch of the road, such that the road, all that contiguous piece of road that we paved this year was all ready to go kind of at the same time. So all of a sudden there's that economies of scale again, and they can just put the unit down right there and grind away, right? So similarly, if you're looking at relining, you're of course always going to benefit from the I&I, reducing the I&I into your plant, but then as well you're trying to line it up with your other pipe that's there and when that might need to be replaced. So it's a pretty interesting, dance that's being done down at Public Works and figuring all of that out of when to try and get all the timing to line up.
Okay, Roger, please.
Okay, just kind of flipping through the page here, some of the other projects. We talked about Salvation Army stair replacement last time. Waterfront pathway, that's one that's underway now. I went down there and took a look myself, but you might have some updates on kind of where we're at with that piece.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really a classic example of getting a grant at a certain time, and it pushes us into construction season, when we actually receive the grant, and then we're posting it late. So this is a project that will bridge over into 25, getting a lot of the sort of major civil works done this year, and then a lot of the landscaping and finishing and some of the treatment on the actual pathway will be done in spring of '25. So, even if we got it all done now, we're not going to plant anything right before winter. So just, a project that will extend on, but this is the major civil work that's happening now.
So if you could just help me with civil works, I think I understand it, but you're talking about like the curbs and
Moving dirt and all of that, yeah.
So that's all sort of graded,
Yeah.
and when you go in next to, it's more of the sort of landscaping.
Yeah, and
Like
the actual...
civil to me is
Yeah.
sort of meaningless.
Sorry, yeah, so...
At this time of night, but.
A lot of the moving dirt and getting everything like at the right level and everything, so, the pathway, will be in. It might not have its asphalt. It probably won't have its asphalt treatment until next year. So it'll be akin to the path that goes along the mall, right? Just packed earth as opposed to having asphalt. So that'll just be through the winter, and then we'll be moving to.
So
the
will we
finishing
be
touches.
plowing it? Will it be usable for people? How will that work?
Yeah, well, they're all the pathway all along there is
Okay.
usable through the winter.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, that's what
Yep.
I want to get. Thank you.
Is there any interest, aside from asphalt, we have the cobblestone that comes from the front of the Prestige. Is there any interest in what the Izu-Shi Society had leveraged over at the Rod and Gun Club? Is that a product?
So best practice for the pathways for accessibility is asphalt. We looked into this, right? Because we were thinking, well, geez, we go from, the pier to in front of Prestige, then to there, then to gravel, then asphalt. What are we doing here? Right?
That's what I was.
We actually called the pros, and, they said, yeah, no, asphalt is, the premium for that rollability for everything that works on that surface. So
Okay.
that's where we landed.
Yeah, just as a sort of a reminder on that piece too, we did receive some grant funding for that, and we talked about that a little bit when we went through the revenue piece, but we got, I think, $560,000 for that piece. And I believe there's also some contribution from the developer there as well. So that's a really excellent use of leveraging funds in order to get some great work done. Transit exchange. I think we provided an update on that. Had been tendered. They had a successful proponent that's within their budget. It's looking like a 12-week schedule to get that done. Very unlikely we're doing anything this year at this point, I would say, though they haven't officially confirmed that. I would be really, surprised if it's not just a spring of 2025 project that we're looking at.
Well,
Yeah.
and we're not going to let them dig our roads up in the winter.
If they're not going to finish it, no, it's not happening. Yeah,
For no civil work, and we'll fix it up later.
no, that's not happening.
Not on Victoria Street.
Yes.
Okay, good plan.
Just kind of turning the page here. Parks Master Plan is in that kind of RFP process. NG 911. So the Intrado, is the company we've procured to install the NG 911 system for us, the hardware and the software solution. They are on site currently. They were doing some visits with our IT staff to look at the police station, fire, city hall, kind of what the facility, what the space is going to look like, so they can sort of map out where everything's going to go. The March 4th, 2025 deadline is still in place. Intrado has told us that they can prioritize us and get it done in February if that deadline still holds. Unclear what, if there'll be an extension. All kind of thoughts out there is that, based on the number of folks, number of PSAPs, that public safety, what's the A for? Answering point. Public safety answering point. That, the number that are still out there, I think, what did I hear from IT today? Of the 242 PSAPs in Canada, only 11 are kind of hooked up right now. So I think the bottleneck is really through those telecom, the TELUSes and those entities of funneling everyone through. So it's really, are they going to be able to onboard everybody in time? But, Intrado's told us if that deadline holds, they'll be able to get us hooked up in time. So that's good. Fire master plan. I think we got a pretty good update on that piece. Vehicles and equipment. Hydro line truck, police vehicle awarded. It's kind of where we're at now.
Great. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Do you need a receipt for that?
No, this is just our update, so we don't need to have a motion on this, but any questions, councillors? Councillor Tate? Any questions?
I just make a comment that, as you go through all of this, it's, it's really great work. Like when you put it all together, it feels like really good governance and upkeep of important infrastructure, which is so vital, so.
We're still doing
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne?
That's just a snapshot.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, it's amazing.
Councillor Payne?
I was just out at a meeting yesterday at Community Futures, and one person came in and said, oh, they parked at the arcade. And 3 other people in the room said, oh, you can park at the arcade now? So I know we just have a communications person coming on board, but it seems like we have an opportunity to, increase in revenue there. I don't know what the plan is going forward, but let's get people parking at the parkade.
I completely agree. I think, we need to, that first wave of letting people who currently park there and those on the waiting list and a little bit of social media, but you're absolutely correct. We didn't have a communications person in place, so that sort of slowed things. Also waiting on some signage. There's still some more signage that's supposed to come that will be right there on the sidewalk when people drive by. So yeah, that's, a pay by phone does that for us. That's just something they provide. It's in their best interest as well that this is successful, so they provide that for us, and they've been a bit slow to get that one to us. So hopefully that'll come soon.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just such an exciting opportunity. to capitalize on it.
While we're on parking, how are we at rolling that out? How's the back office part of that going to enable us to put that on the meters?
Yeah, so we've provided sort of our map of where everything is so they can program that all in, and we're still kind of at that final stage of them kind of getting that layout in place so that, when you're in a certain place, it recognizes, hey, this block, this number goes here, and kind of mapping that all out with different zones, different rules for each zone, like this is, 2-hour parking, this is
Got it.
1 hour, that type of
gonna
thing,
put
and
that
making
all
sure
in
that's
that.
all
Yeah.
inputted. We'll do a bit of testing before we kind of let anybody know that it's live, and then roll that out.
By spring?
I'll have to check with our parking deputy CFO there on her thoughts on timeline, and I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Zara
Yes.
parking.
Bizarre.
Sorry, parking.
I'm sure that she's cracking the whip, so one might be careful, want to be careful about how they're,
I can hear
how
those
you ask
shoes
that
coming.
question. Any other further questions about the Q3 report, council? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Jury, for your report. And we look forward to seeing you multiple times over the next few months during budget.
In my sweater.
Is it cold over on that side?
Sorry.
Is it cold over on that side?
Blue shoes or something.
No, I've got
Blue shoes.
Oh,
New
you've got a
shoes.
budget sweater. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Should we get matching budget sweaters?
yeah. New shoes.
Shoes, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the new shoes part I get.
Or resold ones, I heard one time. That,
Oh,
you
even
know.
better.
City manager, do you have anything to report?
I'll just quickly, obviously focusing on budget and as one of the priorities that we're working on, Chris went through where we're at. We're working to gather that information on especially our rec facilities and what kind of investment needs to be done in that. We're, as indicated previously, we're looking for that workshop in the early new year. There will be a media release going out on the public consultation process for those rec facilities. That should go out shortly, and again, just encourage the public to, and user groups especially, to participate in that. That will be critical information to for council to make some multi-million-dollar decisions on facilities. Mentioned that, that first part is the Civic Center roof, and just there's some different information that's been out there in the media. As council's aware, we do facility condition reports on all our facilities. The last ones were done in 2022. So some of those, none of those reports identified the structural challenges that we have with those facilities. It wasn't until we got into detailed work on the Civic Center that those structural deficiencies were identified first in the Civic Center building, and that led us to look at both the arena and the curling facility. So that's where that information came from. And, council has, as you're all aware, has been investing in our facilities. I think when I started, we were spending about $60,000 a year, and we're spending $2 million plus a year now on those facilities. So there is a significant investment in those facilities. And other things are, we're continuing to work with the proponents around these affordable housing projects. As council's aware, most of those will require a rezone, so they will come to you for that rezone. But we're being clear with the proponents of what, both what information that we can help them with in terms of being able to be ready to apply for a grant, assuming, that zoning is approved, which will come forward, and and working with, whether it's BC Housing, the Chamber, or BC Builds to facilitate those projects happening. So we're actively working with that.
Sorry, can you go back up one sentence?
Sure.
So applying for a grant, there's a new different grant?
There'll be a housing call this early 2025 for those affordable housing.
For all of those grants?
Yeah,
Okay, yep,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we are also working on a council priorities update of where, what progress we've made. I think I've shared some of that as part of another process, but we'll, that'll be part of our budget process is to give that update. We did, as you know, worked on trying to identify some metrics, so we'll be reporting out on those metrics. When I review it, I think we're, doing really well in terms of delivering in many areas on your strategic priorities, and we'll be presenting that prior to making budget decisions of where you want to focus. And I'll leave it at that and pass it on to others.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to report?
No, I think at this time we covered a bunch off with the update, and Kevin managed to hit the main points there. Sorry, CAO.
And Mr. Jury, I'm assuming that you've done Q3, and now you want to rest. Okay. Council reports, councillors. Councillor Pinero.
So just that the library will be completing their future needs report at the end of the month, and that'll get presented to the library board, and then they're looking to present that to council sometime in November, if that's possible. I don't know who makes these sorts of decisions, but they want November. I'm wondering if that's possible or not.
They will be part of the budget. Will there not be a budget presentation at some point? But
So I think normally in November, they come and present their budget, so maybe they can kind of couple it with that, or, I'll talk with Tracy.
Are you going to
Yep,
reach out?
I'll
to
do
her?
that,
That would
yep.
be, thank you.
Okay.
That's it for me.
yeah, we usually hear it, and then it's part of it's our budget. Anybody else? Councillor
I'm just going
Payne?
to speak really quickly. Last week was Co-op Week, and I think many of us know that Nelson is a hotbed of co-ops in North America. And I just wanted to point out to one and all, if you need more information, this is a booklet, whatever you like to call it, that Greg Nestroff put together after researching the history of co-ops and credit unions in our community. It is quite fascinating because, as the title says, co-ops are investing in ourselves. So the money that gets made in this community, you spend in this community, stays in this community. There's no offshore investors, there's no, out-of-town corporate shareholders. Pretty interesting events went on then. And it also is AGM season, and I've been out at a couple AGMs, and I'm not going to mention them, but what struck me was, and Councillor Tate was at the Kootenay Kids AGM, was that only last night? It seems so long ago. But the depth of volunteerism that we have in our communities that are on these boards, making these things happen with volunteer time, with expertise, and the skills that these individuals bring to those boards, it's really just inspiring and spectacular. So I want to thank everyone everywhere who's ever been on a board, volunteered for a board. It's always so exciting for me when they call for nominations from the floor and people actually come forward, and often they'll have a slate prepared. So keep on going, town. This is how we really make it rock around here, in my opinion. So that was it. And I think there are more AGMs to come, and always exciting for me to get that, one-page encapsulation of what an organization's done in a year. That's it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Was there any ADP strategic planning?
Why don't you, and I'll do the childcare.
Thanks very much. I attended the NAADP coordinating committee, advisory committee roundtable as they just reported out on their strategic plan from last year and setting some directions for this year. Taking off from some of the pieces, putting a pin in the stuff that they completed, which was partly the housing report from Macola, the housing entity study, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Wrapped up with a bow, looking at the childcare aspect of it, and just figuring out the best way to continue to support Nelson and area economic development through the coming year. It's looking good. It's a great group as well.
Thank you for getting there. Of course, I was away for that. Anybody else have a report? I have a few things, just some of them are just kind of more housekeeping and a few other things. And I guess I might start with what was fascinating to me is on my vacation, you're supposed to go away and forget everything, but I thought my little tidbit that I will share with everybody is that I was watching these documentaries that you can watch about cruise ships in your room when you're on a cruise ship, and they talk about how they deal with all of their waste and whatever, and the new cruise ships that are coming out that this line that I was cruising with are building all have ginormous food cyclers on them.
Ah.
Yeah, so they do bio slurries, which are allowed to be then discharged into the ocean.
Powered by their turbines?
And then I don't know, I was on a very old ship because once I saw that, I was all over, like I'm getting into the kitchen, right? But the older ship I was on doesn't have one, but I thought it was very interesting that all of the newer models are actually not only doing bio slurries of wet waste, but they're also doing dehydration. So a food cycler model, it looked very much like the picture, looked very much like I was standing in the kitchen at Selkirk College looking at their one, because again, storage and space and weight are all important aspects of cruise ships. They do look at tonnage when you go through the Panama Canal, and it costs $500,000 for our cruise ship to go through the locks in the Panama Canal.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing the cost. I had a question, sorry, I meant to ask you during your report. I understand that there's some new sections, 32 of the public sector accounting practices is being done, and I was wondering whether or not you felt that those changes might have any kind of material impact to the city budget, or how we report things out, or what our practices might be.
Sorry, is this one to do with revenue and investment revenue, or is it? Because the last thing
I should have looked at it more closely.
The last one that we did was last year, where we talked about not contaminated sites, but asset retirement obligations.
Yeah,
So
this
we had
one.
that for
This one's new. I think it's
Yeah.
coming in the spring. So, anyways,
We might have another year on that. Often it's the year ends that begin you know, in March, so we might have till 2026 then to do that one.
Okay, so just keep in mind, trying to pay
Yeah.
attention to some of those things.
Appreciate that.
BC non-profit housing meeting is coming up November the 18th to 20th. I assume, Councillor Payne, that you are wanting to go to that?
The BC Nonprofit Housing
Meeting,
Conference?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm registered and ready to go.
Okay.
And we did have,
There was
was
something
that
in
the meeting
minutes.
you missed, that we did have a discussion that I needed an extra $500 to go, so that was
Yeah,
fine.
and I was just wondering, like, was the question asked, did any other councillors want to attend?
What are the
believe
dates?
it
Because
was.
I'll probably.
November the 18th to the 20th. Just having reviewed the,
Housing Central, it's called.
yeah, Housing Central. Looking at the agenda, there's some very interesting keynote speakers. One of Councillor Payne's favorite people, John Valiant, is, I think, the lead keynote speaker, but there's Gaber Mate, there's
Who just won a
a
big
number
award.
of other activists that are speaking. So I just wanted to put it out there that Councillor Payne has gone every year since she's been on council, that if anybody else wanted to go, that we should be looking at the opportunity for people to, if you're interested, to.
Can we, if we need to pass a resolution that, can we do that? Because I'm already going to be down there for UBCM. I wasn't necessarily planning to stay the weekend, but I potentially.
It's not a
could.
weekend.
Well, no, because
Oh.
I'm going down the 13th,
Oh, the
14th,
previous
15th,
week, okay.
Right.
and then coming back, but maybe
Well,
it
I
makes
don't
sense
think,
to stay.
I don't think have you spent any of your discretionary money? I don't think so. So I mean, I
Probably
think you're, but it's just a good thing to have a list, but take a look, talk to somebody,
I'll take a look, I'll talk to somebody.
yeah, and get registered then.
Central.
Yeah, because I think there could be some interesting things there. The other thing was just a reminder for you guys to look at your mail. I see that they're asking for whether or not we want to change one of the dates to allow us to be in attendance, I would imagine, at the community meetings for the recreation planning, because one of their meeting nights was on November the 5th, which is our next city council meeting. They're looking at moving it to the 12th. They are looking for
Already gave them a heads up.
feedback from the three of us. So you want the date changed?
They're checking to see, there was an email that went out today
Yeah.
to check to see if the 12th would work for most people.
And I said, yes, it works for me.
Okay,
I have the surgery on the 6th, so I'm a maybe for getting to anything in the following week.
I can always take you if it's necessary. Because I'll respond and I'll say, I just wanted to respond so that we're all kind of responding with the same
It's been
thing.
done.
Another thing is coming up is for those that people that like to volunteer and want to go out and rake leaves.
Yeah, working.
Is this Sunday? You're gonna rake leaves in the backyard? This Sunday, Nelson District Hospice is going out to help with people that can't kind of maintain their yard work and whatever. And so they're meeting at 9:30 at the co-op, at the Community First Health Co-op, to obviously send out addresses of where to go to help do some raking, which is, the other reminder is for those that are capable of doing yard work, is that for the month of October, yard and waste drop-off is free at the regional district transfer stations. And the other thing being, what else do I have on here? This was Small Business Week, so hopefully people are going out and supporting their small businesses. It's always interesting to have like arts and culture come and talk about the fact that they are business operators. And I think something to keep in mind, that they are entrepreneurial. And that for those that like to go, the Business After Business is on Wednesday versus Thursday this week, held at Community Futures like it always is. It's a good opportunity to go in if you haven't, and to understand how they help people, because oftentimes a lot of the people that attend there are actually people that are sort of like successful graduates of the Community Futures program or are currently enrolled in the Community Futures program. So it's a good opportunity to talk to somebody that's gone through those programs. And one more little reminder to all of us that nominations for Sports Ambassador and for the Sustainability Awards need to get sent in to Sonia so she can collate that. So if you have information, not only just a name, but some background information, so that when that gets disseminated in our agenda, our in-camera agenda package for the November the 5th meeting, that we can have more than just a name and have some background information on those people.
Did you say November 5th?
November 5th is when we're gonna make the decision, so we need to have.
ASAP.
This Friday?
Well, that's Friday. It's almost by this Friday, but I mean.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Wednesday.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Don't confuse me, Jessica.
Don't confuse me either.
It's
I'm
getting
still-
late, okay?
I'm still trying to catch up on, I don't know why it takes so long now to catch up on 3 hours of time change. And one last thing is I just want people to give some thought. I've been asked for some additional dates about when we can do budget. I don't know, does anybody have any flavor for doing 2 full days of budget in like back to back? Or is that overwhelming? We're looking at January 9th and 10th. We'd be having a council meeting on the Tuesday, and that would be the Thursday, Friday of that same week in the new year. Or shall we just stick with Fridays, which was what kind of our agreement was?
I won't be able to attend that on Thursday.
Okay, so I'm gonna send it back that we just need to keep budget days on Fridays, but we will be having potentially on some Fridays a full-on sort of 9 to 4 budget day. So of course, on those meetings, lunch will be provided. Okay, I think
Can I
that's,
just add, so the suggestion for back-to-back, how is that supportive of staff? Like, what is the,
that was staff's request,
just because you guys can compare and just get it out of the way, or?
Yeah, we thought it might be an interesting idea to have, because what it would be is sort of those department presentations, so have them kind of come and do a couple days.
together.
It was just a thought, stretching it to a couple weeks, it doesn't, we thought it might help you folks if you wanted to do it that way, but Fridays is totally fine, yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Clarification on this Friday's hydro budget. On my calendar here, it says it's a Microsoft Teams meeting. Is that in person or is that online?
That's for me, I'll be online.
You'll be online, but otherwise in person.
Yep.
Thank you.
yeah, and that starts at 1 o'clock if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Have I got
1
the
to
time right
4.
here?
And I won't be in attendance.
Okay. We'll have, it's a workshop, but we'll have enough people here to be here. So that's, I think that's it for that. So if I can have a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting, and we will step right into, thank you, moved by Councilor Woodward, seconded by Councilor Page. All those in favor? That carries. Opposed? Nobody. Okay. And then we'll move immediately into the special meeting to do the PTE.
See you on Friday.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Woodward. Have a good evening. We're gonna see if we can pass this fast enough and then you won't even be gone yet. And for anybody that's listening in, Councilor Woodward, because he didn't stay long enough to declare his, he does have a perceived conflict of interest as he is an employee of one of the properties that is applying for PTE, so he has recused from the meeting. So if I could have a motion to accept the agenda as circulated.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Page, seconded by Councilor Pinero. All those in favor, and that carries. We have no late items or anything else exciting, so we can move right into the issue, and that is the final adoption of the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 3614/2020. The permissive tax exemptions that are currently granted by the city are set to expire at the end of this year, consistent with council's policy. Council must now consider granting exemptions to applicants for the taxation year beginning in 2025. Based on the parameters in council's permissive tax exemption policy, staff have prepared a bylaw for council to consider. Council has passed 3 readings of this bylaw and are now requested to adopt permissive tax exemption bylaw number 3614/2024. Is there a mover? Moved by Councilor Tate, seconded by Councilor Page. Discussion, councilors. Oh, we might beat him out of the driveway. Any further discussion? I understand that there was quite a long meeting, and then you had an additional
Robust
meeting in my
discussion.
absence, and
Discussion's all been had, I think.
everybody's good? We feel comfortable with where we are?
Wouldn't go that far, but yeah, we're here.
Okay, okay. Well, it's been moved and seconded. All, Counselor Tate, do you want to read the?
That council passes the following resolution, that the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 3614, 2024 be finally adopted.
Okay, that resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And it carries. Okay, thank you, everybody. If I could have a motion to adjourn. Moved by ooh, look at that. Moved by Councillor Tate. Obviously, you whipped them into shape in my absence.
Oh, yeah.
Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? Oh, look at that. Very